Chapter 768, was shocked for fifths. The day of the grand competition of the Yongchang disciples was a gloomy day for the many heaven's chosen disciples in the Yongchang world. When the Dragon King made his move, the heavens chosen were gloomy. Even his subordinate had the terrifying strength to crush all the heavens chosen. Especially the power of the immortals and gods that they unleashed in the end, which shook the entire Yongchang world. When the Dragon King and his men left the Yongchang world and the Yongchang world appeared, the immortal sect had investigated the news of the Dragon King of the martial arts world. The results of the investigation shocked them. However, as there was no news of the Dragon King in the past year, the Yongchang world gradually forgot about the Dragon King. They did not expect to meet the Dragon King who was casting clouds and rain in their world. Dragon King! Piao Lingxue hesitated for a moment before calling out to Wang Xian and walking over. Speaking of which, her relationship with this Dragon King was pretty good. The immortal sect also knew the reason for the Dragon King's massacre before he left. Speaking of which, regardless of whether it was the Great Hong Immortal Sect, the Yongchang Immortal Sect, or the Immortal Slaying Sect, they did not have much enmity with the Dragon King. Flower Fairy addressed him as the Dragon King. Piao Lingxue addressed him as the Dragon King. The two of them walked towards the young man. Everyone was stunned when they saw two of the top 5 beauties walking towards the young man. Even the young man on top of the city-toppling beauty and the Thunder Beast had a look of astonishment on his face. Dragon King! Dragon King! Mu Lingchuan immediately shouted and walked towards Wang Xian. When Hong Tianda saw Wandering Snow walking over, he also called out respectfully and walked towards Wang Xian. Dragon King! Yin Fengwen also called out respectfully and walked over. He was not from the Yongchang world, nor was he from the innate immortal sect. Instead, he was from the puppet immortal sect. There was no need to mention the disciples of the puppet immortal sect and the Ming Wang immortal sect. Many of the disciples of the Ming Wang immortal sect were killed, and the immortal gods of the immortal sect went to take revenge. In the end, all the disciples of the immortal sect received the news that it was forbidden to offend the Dragon King. When he thought of this, Yin Fengwen felt his heart palpitate. The Dragon King was definitely not someone that a disciple like him could offend, even if he was the most outstanding disciple of the puppet immortal sect and one of the heaven's favorites in the Jianghu. When he met the Dragon King, he still had to greet him properly. Hiss! Seeing this scene, everyone around sucked in a breath of cold air. What was going on? Why were the top beauties on the beauty chart greeting the seemingly ordinary young man one by one? Especially the group of people who had just arrived, they looked at him in shock. Just now, the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan said that the young man wasn't qualified to be compared to him. Qing also said that the young man was an unknown person and was inferior to the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan. What's going on now? 2 peerless beauties went to greet him, and the 3 heavens chosen walked over. From the looks of it, they were all very respectful. A few disciples from the immortal sects looked at this scene in astonishment, and started to discuss. Dragon King? The young clan leader of the Thunder Clan and Qing's expression darkened when they heard the discussion around them. Their eyes were sparkling as they stared at the young man whom they had overlooked. Dragon King! Wang Xian nodded at Fairy Centauria and Mu Lingchuan who were walking over. He looked at Piao Lingxue and Hong Tianda. Long time no see, Wang Xian said to them indifferently. Long time no see. Piao Lingxue sized up Wang Xian and nodded with a smile. No way. According to the description on the Ultimate Beauty chart, the reason why Qing was ranked first was because she loved to smile. Her smile could topple cities and she was ranked first on the Ultimate Beauty chart. As for Flower Fairy, she has the scent of 100 flowers blooming. She's so quiet that she's like the most beautiful flower in the world. As for Wandering Snow, she's as white as snow and as cold as snow. The two of them should be relatively high and mighty beauties. But now they actually look so. This is so wrong. It's completely different from the description. Why do I have the illusion that Flower Fairy seems to like that young man? When the crowd saw the 2 goddesses looking at the young man with smiles on their faces, They could not help but swallow their saliva in disbelief. The young clan leader of the Thunder Clan and Ching also looked on in shock. Who was that young man? He actually caused Flower Fairy and Wandering Snow to treat him in such a manner. When Tang Yixian saw the two beauties who suddenly appeared, she raised her eyebrows and pursed her lips slightly. Dragon King, did you guys find a way to attract the terrestrial starfish? Flower Fairy asked Wang Xian with a twinkle in her eyes. Yes. Wang Xian nodded his head. A friend of mine found a way to attract the terrestrial starfish. It's just that it's a little loud and will attract the attention of others. No matter how loud it is, unless someone is looking for trouble, some of the commotion is not a problem. To be able to find a way to attract the terrestrial starfish, it's really amazing. Wang Xian smiled and looked around. He said in a deep voice, We are using a special method to attract the Earth starfish. Everyone, don't disturb us. Otherwise, you will have to bear the consequences. Cheng Qingqing's expression changed when she heard Wang Xian's words. A method to attract the Earth starfish was very important to the Fengyan celestial sect. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come here personally. Now, she was actually warning them not to disturb her. This made her face turn slightly ugly. However, when she saw the few heaven's favorites and beauties around him, her face turned even uglier. This young man whom she didn't even look at earlier, who even said bluntly that the young man was inferior to the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan, was actually surrounded by beautiful heaven's favorites. This was simply a slap in the face to what she had just said. And you, don't come and disturb Yin Xian in the future. Don't be so arrogant in front of me. I'll give you a warning. Wang Xian's gaze landed on the Thunder Beast young man and warned him lightly. This caused the Thunder Beast young man's expression to change. He looked extremely gloomy and dark. Young master, we want to obtain the method to attract the Earth starfish. We are willing to pay some price in exchange. Ching Qingqing looked at Wang Xian and said with a twinkle in her eyes. I'm not interested. Wang Xian looked at her and shook his head coldly. This made Ching Qingqing's expression turn ugly. No matter what, she was the #1 beauty in the Peerless Beauty chart. To think that she would be rejected so coldly by a young man. This made her look ugly. No one else has the right to tell me what I, Lei Mingyuan, do. The young man on the Thunder Beast said as he stared at Wang Xian with a dark expression and a twinkle in his eyes. He did not have much scruples about this mysterious Dragon King. This place was very close to their celestial sect. The mysterious sea also belonged to their territory. Therefore, even though this young man was very mysterious, he was not afraid at all. Boom! Just as the young man finished his sentence, a terrifying power that caused one's heart to palpitate suddenly came from the bottom of the sea. Bang! Suddenly, a 10-meter large creature was thrown up. Chapter 769: The Outcome of Finger-Pointing. Bang! A gigantic creature suddenly appeared on the surface of the sea in front of Wang Xian. Everyone was slightly stunned as they looked at the creature that had been killed. This. All of a sudden, the pupils of Ching Qingqing, the young chief of the Thunder Clan, and the people from the Fengyan celestial sect could not help but constrict. A look of horror appeared on their faces. Water-traced horn beast! It's a water-traced horn beast! The scalps of the two people from the immortal sect turned numb as they stared at this gigantic creature with shock on their faces. Roar! The Thunder Beast, that the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan sat on, lay on the ground and growled in fear. Even though this creature had already been killed, its terrifying pressure still caused the Thunder Beast to tremble, and its eyes were filled with fear. Walla! Soon after, under everyone's shocked gazes, a red-clothed woman drilled out from the bottom of the sea. A flame danced between the woman's brows, and a faint flame flashed past her body. She had a perfect appearance, and her body had an imposing aura that seemed to rule the world. This aura was extremely dense, as if a goddess from the 9 heavens had descended upon the mortal world. Especially the flame between her eyebrows. It was filled with majesty, as if it was her third eye. It was completely incomparable to the red dot that was placed between her eyebrows with an item. The flame between the eyebrows of the lady flickered and gradually disappeared. Phew! Guan Shuqing controlled her physical body once again. She looked at Wang Xian with a smile on her face. The instant pressure turned into an instant smile. This change in temperament made everyone's heart flutter. Xiao Xian! Guan Shuqing looked at Wang Xian and walked over with a smile. She held his arm and glanced at the newly appeared Piao Lingxue. Are you all right? Wang Xian looked at Guan Shuqing and asked her. I'm fine. Look, I even killed a creature in the water. Its strength has reached the level of an immortal god. Guan Shuqing pointed at the monster's corpse and said with a smile. Okay. Wang Xian nodded his head. When Feng Luan possessed a physical body, she could unleash the terrifying strength of a superior immortal. Killing an ordinary immortal god was a piece of cake. Hiss! However, Guan Shuqing and Wang Xian's words made everyone around them gasp. This was especially so for the people from the Fengyan Celestial Sect and the Thunder Clan. Initially, they were still uncertain. Now that they heard it with their own ears, they widened their eyes. They knew that the lowest water-traced horned beast had the terrifying strength of a half-step immortal god. From the terrifying pressure of this water-traced horned beast, they guessed that it was most likely an immortal god-level existence. However, they didn't dare to be certain, nor did they dare to believe it. Now that they heard it with their own ears, they couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. To be able to kill an immortal-level water-traced horned beast, he must be at least a middle-level immortal. A middle-level immortal. This was a middle-level immortal. That girl was a middle-level immortal. This made everyone dumbfounded. However, what was the strength of the young man who was being held by that girl? An immortal-level creature! In the surroundings, the other disciples of the immortal sect let out low roars. Their eyes were filled with fear and fear. Wang Xian looked at the water-striped horned beast. With a wave of his arm, he stored it directly into his interspatial ring. He slowly raised his head and looked at the young man on the thunder beast. In an instant, the young chief of the Thunder Clan felt his scalp tingling. He looked at Wang Xian with an embarrassed expression and felt a little nervous. The surrounding people also looked over hurriedly. Just now, this mysterious young man asked the young chief of the Thunder Clan not to pester the girl beside him. In the end, the young chief of the Thunder Clan said that he didn't have the right to criticize him. And now, a goddess who was a middle-level immortal was leaning against the young man's side. In addition to the group of heaven's favorites and beauties who looked respectful, there was a high possibility that he was an immortal god. Talking to an immortal god like that was simply courting death. Under everyone's gaze, the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan was a little nervous. Especially under the gaze of Wang Xian, his heart was beating violently. It's forbidden for an immortal-level powerhouse to make a move. Furthermore, this is Ji Ding's territory. He gritted his teeth and stared at Wang Xian as he said in embarrassment. When the surrounding people saw the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan holding on, they also silently thought that he had a backbone. Just as he said, it was forbidden for an immortal-level powerhouse to make a move, especially since this was the Thunder Clan's territory, Ji Ding's territory. The young clan leader of the Thunder Clan was the most outstanding disciple of the current generation of the Thunder Clan. Even if he didn't provoke the immortal wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Wang Xian looked at him and smiled. Ripples appeared under his feet. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, a group of draconids who had been at the bottom of the sea moved and emerged from the bottom of the sea. There were 10 draconids and 10 infant-stage powerhouses. The moment they appeared, the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan's expression changed drastically. What are you trying to do? He stared at Wang Xian and shouted loudly. Are you trying to tell me what to do? Then let's kill them all. Wang Xian looked at the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan and said coldly. When everyone around heard Wang Xian's words, their expressions changed slightly. Even though the immortals forbade them from making a move, it didn't mean that his subordinates couldn't make a move. These 10 infant-stage powerhouses were enough to put the Thunder Clan in a desperate situation. However, at this moment, just as everyone thought that the 10 experts who had crawled out from the bottom of the sea were about to make a move. A figure emitting white light suddenly appeared behind the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan. 4 rays of white light flashed across the figure's body, and a terrifying force heavily landed on the Thunder Beast. Roar, roar, roar! The Thunder Beast let out a miserable cry, its huge body slowly lying on the surface of the water, sinking downwards. The Thunder Clan's young clan leader, who was on the Thunder Beast, also fell towards the bottom of the sea with a face full of fear. Young clan leader! The expressions of the surrounding Thunder Clan disciples changed drastically, and they hurriedly picked up the Thunder Clan's young clan leader's body. This. If you don't seek death, you won't die. It's true. You dare to be so arrogant to an immortal god, and you even said that you don't have the right to criticize him. After that, you didn't apologize. Now that your limbs have been chopped off, your life is over. You have guts, but you provoked an immortal god first. If you don't apologize, you're courting death. Having your limbs chopped off, I reckon that the Thunder Clan wouldn't care about this matter. I've always heard that the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan is extremely arrogant. Today, he knows the consequences of being arrogant. When the surrounding crowd saw young clan leader Lay's 4 limbs being chopped off, they revealed gloating expressions. Riding on the Thunder Beast, they looked down on everyone with an air of superiority. In the beginning, they had said that the Lord Immortal God did not have the qualifications to compete with him. Now, with a flick of his finger, he could cripple your 4 limbs. This was the consequence of being arrogant. When the Thunder Clan disciples saw the dumbstruck and despairing young clan leader Lay's expression, they were also extremely embarrassed. However, they didn't dare to say anything. They didn't even dare to say that they wanted revenge. In fact, after the Thunder Clan found out about this matter, there was a very high chance that they would just let it go. This was because the girl beside him was a middle-level immortal, and that young man was very likely a middle-level immortal, or even higher. Chapter 770 Invitation Letter from the Xianyuan Clan. My lord, we shall take our leave! The group of Thunder Clan disciples cupped their fists at Wang Xian. With an embarrassed expression, they carried the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan and left into the distance. When they saw this scene, everyone around them sighed. My lord, I'm sorry. I was rude just now. Please forgive me if I have offended you. At this moment, Cheng Qingqing, who was watching the scene from the side, turned slightly pale. She quickly apologized to Wang Xian. We are here to catch a starfish. Everyone, don't come and disturb us. Otherwise, the one just now will be your end. Wang Xian ignored Cheng Qingqing. He scanned the surroundings and warned her faintly. Yes. We will definitely not disturb you. We will leave this place now. Everyone around nodded their heads respectfully. Wang Xian nodded his head slowly. The surrounding disciples of the celestial sect left immediately. Dragon King, we will take our leave too. Flower Fairy, Piao Lingxue, and the rest hesitated for a moment before taking their leave. Please pass these spirit weapons and elixirs to Master Yu. Tell him that we didn't have the time to take our leave last time. Wang Xian moved his arm and passed 5 level 12 spirit tools and 10 level 7 elixirs to Piao Lingxue. All right, we promise to deliver them. Piao Lingxue nodded and left with the spirit tools and elixirs. Hong Tianda, Yin Fengwen and the rest also bowed and followed closely behind. All right, no one will disturb us now, Wang Xian said to Tang Yixian with a smile on his face. Then the world will be ours next. Tang Yixian walked to the side excitedly and said to Wang Xian. Wang Xian nodded and said, Let's continue. What? Yin Xian can use a special method to attract a starfish? Shu Qing asked curiously. Wang Xian nodded and said, Yes, I plan to use this method to capture the fish for a few days. What is the phoenix looking for down there? I didn't find anything. The bottom is connected to the underground sea. It's bottomless. I flew at the fastest speed for more than 10 minutes, but I still couldn't see the bottom. Furthermore, the interior is extremely vast and dark. It's like an abyss, Guan Shuqing said. Sister Feng Wan wants to find the way back to her world. She said that the spiritual energy here is too thin. Okay. Wang Xian nodded his head and looked pensive. In the next few days, Wang Xian, Guan Shuqing, and Tang Yinxian had been catching earth starfish in the mysterious sea. As for the matter of someone using a special method to attract earth starfish, it became a hot topic in the area of Jiding and the other cauldrons. Especially in the area of Jiding, everyone knew that there was a young immortal who brought along the wife of at least a middle-level immortal, as well as a beautiful lady and her subordinates to catch earth starfish in the mysterious sea using a special method. In fact, the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan had offended the immortal god back then, and had his limbs chopped off by his subordinates. Cheng Qingqing had apologized to him in person. This matter involved the immortal god, the young clan leader of the Thunder Clan, and the number one beauty, Cheng Qingqing. It immediately caused a huge sensation on Jiding. In the end, the Dragon King of the Dragon Gate, who was once the overlord of the Jianghu and was now a terrifying existence at the immortal god level, was dug out by someone. The result shocked all the immortal sections. At present, 20 immortal sects were standing in the Jianghu, and the 20 immortal sects occupied a territory. Now a force that was comparable to the immortal sects suddenly appeared, instantly attracting the attention of all the immortal sections. The Dragon King of the Dragon Gate truly entered the sight of all the forces. And all the disciples of the immortal sects also knew that besides the immortal sects of the Eight Cauldrons world, there was also a terrifying Dragon Gate hidden in the Jianghu. A powerful force with at least one middle-level immortal could be ranked in the top 10 in terms of overall strength. After Wang Xian received this news, he didn't pay too much attention to it. Now, those who knew about the existence of the Dragon Gate, such as the Puppet Immortal Sect of Shun Ding, the Ming Wang Immortal Sect, the Yellow Heaven Immortal Sect of Yellow Ding, the Upper Nine Immortal Sects and the Chaos Immortal Sect, knew about the existence of the Dragon Gate. Tang Ding's Innate Immortal Sect, True Martial Immortal Academy, and Ice God Immortal Sect, Yao Ding's Holy Doctor Immortal Sect, and Holy Medicine Immortal Sect also knew about the existence of Dragon King of Dragon Gate. In addition to Ji Ding's immortal sects, 70% of the immortal sects knew about the existence of Dragon King of Dragon Gate. The news of the mysterious sea only spread the existence of Dragon King of Dragon Gate throughout the entire Jianghu. All the disciples of immortal sects knew about the existence of such a powerful force in Jianghu. It's getting fewer and fewer. We only caught about 70 fish today. 7 days later, Tang Yinxian looked at the day's harvest and said with slight dissatisfaction, "More than 70 fish. This would definitely make the immortal sects drool if word got out." However, to Wang Xian and the rest, the harvest today was a little less. A few days ago, they caught more than 200 terrestrial starfish in one day at most. In the first 6 days, they caught 1,000 terrestrial starfish. On the 7th day, the number of terrestrial starfish began to decrease drastically. Although the mysterious sea was huge, the number of terrestrial starfish was not many. After catching them for 7 days, the number of terrestrial starfish was decreasing at a rapid rate. Perhaps in a few days, their harvest would be even less. The harvest is already considered pretty good. Wang Xian smiled. If the harvest in these 7 days were to turn into dragon energy, it could reach 70 to 80 million. However, compared to the Earth starfish, Wang Xian was more inclined to change the Earth starfish into a grade 6 medicinal pill. Consuming a grade 6 medicinal pill could increase his dragon energy by around 110,000. If he were to change it into a grade 6 medicinal pill, he would be able to increase his dragon energy by more than 100 million. Wang Xian was prepared to change all of the Earth starfish into medicinal pills before consuming them. Whoosh! Whoosh! Just as he was about to return, 2 figures suddenly flew over at a terrifying speed. The figures were flying on their swords. They were wearing yellow clothes and the word, Xianyuan, was written on their chests. Ha! Wang Xian looked over and saw 2 middle-aged men flying towards them. "Dragon King of the Dragon Gate, nice to meet you. The 2 of us are from the Xianyuan clan." The two middle-aged men came in front of Wang Xian and put away their spiritual swords. They cupped their hands towards Wang Xian with smiles on their faces. "Xian Yuan clan? May I know why you are here?" Wang Xian asked them with a puzzled expression. The two middle-aged men were extremely powerful. One of them was a lower-level immortal while the other should be a middle-level immortal. "We are inviting the Dragon Sect to participate in the Celestial Sect's disciple competition in 2 days' time. You didn't participate in the Celestial Sect's agreement last time. This time, our Xianyuan clan would like to invite you to participate in this grand event." A middle-aged man smiled and handed an invitation card to Wang Xian. "Celestial Sect's disciple competition?" Wang Xian took the invitation card and revealed a curious expression. "Yes, all the Celestial Sects will take out some items to support this Celestial Sect's disciple competition. Dragon Sect has the strength of the Celestial Sect, so our Xianyuan clan sincerely invites you, Dragon King," the middle-aged man said politely to him. "All right, I will attend on time." Wang Xian hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. Chapter 771 Grand Competition of the Disciples of the Immortal Sections. Dragon King, the Grand Competition of the Disciples of the Immortal Sects is the recognition of each immortal sect and their disciples. Each of the 20 immortal sects will take out a treasure as a reward for the winning disciples. According to the rules of our grand competition, those who are in the top 20 and have joined the Dragon Sect will be ranked 21. Those who enter the ranking will be rewarded. The Dragon Gate can join the competition directly. What do you think, Dragon King? The two middle-aged men from the Xianyuan clan smiled at Wang Xian. Reward? Wang Xian looked thoughtful. Then let's make a grade 13 spiritual weapon. It's a celestial weapon. It can be customized. After obtaining the art of engraving formations from Feng Luan, Wang Xian could already forge grade 13 spiritual weapons. With the materials he had now, he could forge many grade 13 spirit weapons. It was very suitable for him to take out the celestial weapon as a reward. After the grade 13 spirit weapon, he could add more and custom make it. This was to promote his forging workshop in the future. In addition, he could also showcase the heroic spirit of the Dragon Gate. Grade 13 spirit weapon? The two middle-aged men were slightly stunned. A hint of shock flashed in their eyes. Dragon King, are you sure that it's a grade 13 spiritual weapon? They pursed their lips and asked again in surprise. Of course. I'm a weaponsmith. I can tailor-make a spiritual weapon for the winner. Wang Xian nodded with a smile. Dragon King, you're really generous. This reward of yours can be used as the reward for the first winner. The two of them smiled and said, Oh right, Dragon King, each immortal sect has a spot for a guaranteed disciple. The guaranteed disciple can enter the competition for the 21 spots directly. There is no need for the previous competition. If it's a disciple, there might not be a disciple from the Dragon Sect participating in this competition. Wang Xian smiled and shook his head. Oh right, if the two of you need to refine a grade 13 spiritual weapon in the future, I can do it as long as you bring out 3 sets of materials. In the future, our Dragon Sect will open a forging workshop and advertise it now. 3 sets of materials can be used to refine a grade 13 spiritual weapon. The two middle-aged men looked at each other in astonishment. Looks like I'll have to trouble you, Dragon King, to help me refine weapons in the future. The two middle-aged men were even more enthusiastic as they smiled at Wang Xian. Among all the immortal sects, the Yongchang Immortal Sect was the strongest in refining weapons. There were 2 immortals in the Yongchang Immortal Sect who could refine a grade 13 spiritual weapon. Furthermore, the success rate was only 1/3 to 1/4. Furthermore, the 2 immortal gods basically would not craft a spiritual weapon. Other than the immortal gods from the Yongchang Immortal Sect, there were no more than 3 who could craft a level 13 spiritual weapon. To get them to craft a spiritual weapon of the immortal god, they would have to pay a terrifying price. Now that 3 sets of materials could be used to craft a spiritual weapon of the immortal god, it was believed that many immortal gods would come. The spiritual weapon of the immortal god was different from a level 12 spiritual weapon. The spiritual weapon of the immortal god already possessed the way of transformation and was very difficult to craft. Wang Xian smiled when he saw their expressions. Although inscribing an array formation was more complicated and difficult with a high failure rate, it was not a big problem for him. A 100% success rate might not be possible, but there was a 90% success rate. Moreover, if he were to let Feng Wan refine it, it would be a 100% success rate. Now that he could get 2 out of 3 sets of materials, the benefits were already astonishing. Of course, no problem. At most, the Dragon Gate workshop will officially open in all the major cities in a month. Wang Xian smiled. All right, we will be there on time. We shall disturb you then. We will meet again at the disciple competition in 2 days. The 2 middle-aged men cupped their hands at Wang Xian. All right. Wang Xian nodded. Thank you for your hard work. These are the earth starfish that we caught in the mysterious sea today. Consider them as gifts. As he spoke, he smiled and handed over more than 70 earth starfish. More than 70 earth starfish. Dragon King, you are really generous. The 2 middle-aged men looked at the net of earth starfish with a slightly bitter expression. Their eyes lit up as well. The preciousness of more than 70 earth starfish was enough to move the hearts of immortals and deities. Haha, we have caught more than 1,000 of them over the past few days. It's not a big deal to give you more than 70 of them. Take care, both of you. Wang Xian cupped his hands and smiled at him. All right, then we won't be stingy in accepting them. When we arrive at the Xianyuan clan, we will take good care of you, Dragon King. The 2 middle-aged men cupped their hands happily and accepted the earth starfish. Then they flew into the distance. This Dragon King is very different from the one in the information. He looks good and has a very good character. Maybe it's because of the powers of our Xianyuan clan. However, looking at how generous he is indeed not as difficult to get along with as described in the information. The 2 of them who came to the sky on their flying swords conversed in a low voice. Their figures turned into an aurora and disappeared. Xiao Xian, are we going to participate in the Celestial Sex Disciple competition? Guan Shuqing asked Wang Xian curiously from the side. Of course, we have to participate. The so-called Celestial Sex Competition is a competition between the forces of the Jianghu and also a demonstration of the powers of the Celestial Sect. Now that the name of the Dragon Gate has spread throughout the Jianghu, this competition is also the first time the Dragon Gate will make an appearance. When the time comes, you, me, and Aojian will go together. It will also be a demonstration of the powers of the Dragon Gate. Wang Xian said with a smile. If it's the day after tomorrow, we will have to make some preparations. Guan Shuqing nodded. Okay, call all the disciples of the Dragon Gate. We will head over immediately. Wang Xian nodded. The group of them came to a restaurant in a small town beside the mysterious sea. Wang Xian immediately contacted Xiao Yu and Qin Yu. A few girls were very interested in the competition this time around and expressed that they would go together. Naturally, Wang Xian agreed gladly. The next day, Wang Xian called Prime Minister Gui over and asked him to bring back the corpse of the immortal-level water-striped unicorn. With the corpse of the water-striped unicorn, with the effect of cultivating the star-guiding disc for more than a year, it was entirely possible to create 1, or even 2 immortal-level members. The Dragon Palace currently had 33 half-step immortal-level immortals. These 33 half-step immortal-level immortals had a high possibility of stepping into the immortal level at any time. Apart from that, the 9 hues were currently in the process of breaking through. It would only take them a few months to reach the immortal god realm. At that time, the 9 hues would have the combat strength of 9 immortal gods. When they came out, the Dragon Palace's strength would receive a terrifying increase. These few days, Wang Xian was prepared to go to the mysterious sea to devour some aquatic creatures. However, after searching for half a day, he only found a few dozen elixir realm and an infant realm creature. He had only increased his dragon chi by about 10 million. Brother, sister-in-law Shu Qing. At noon the next day, Xiao Yu, Qin Yu, Ao Jian, and the group of Draconids rushed to the small town beside the mysterious sea. Other than them, there were also 10 strange demons hiding in the void. Aoya was among them. Let's go. Let's head to the immortal gate of the Xianyuan clan. Chapter 772, Immortal Sect Gathering. The first Immortal Sect Disciple Competition. This was a very sensational event for the entire Jianghu. For all the Immortal Sect disciples, this was a grand event. There were peerless beauties in Jianghu, and there was a Heaven's Pride roll. However, there wasn't a ranking on the Heaven's Pride roll. Moreover, everyone wasn't very clear about the overall strength of an Immortal Sect disciple. However, through this Immortal Sect Disciple competition, one could understand the strength of the disciples of the various great immortal sections. The true ranking of the prodigy roll. The overall strength of the disciples of the various great immortal sects. And even the strength of some immortal sects. This time, after the emergence of the 8 Cauldron world, it was the first time that a disciple could truly make a name for himself. This time, the competition was for the strong, and they could soar to the skies in this competition. It was a Heaven's chosen who could shine brilliantly in this battle. As long as they could enter the top 21 of the competition, they would definitely be the most powerful 21 disciples in the entire Jianghu. To those Heaven's chosen and monstrous disciples, this was simply the best competition. It was a dragon that could truly soar to the 9 heavens. The entire Jianghu was in an uproar. All the disciples of the immortal sects were sharpening their blades. There was truly a chance to make a name for themselves. No disciple with ambition and strength would give up on this competition. On the pugilistic world online, everyone was discussing the matter of the disciple competition. There were even some who were analyzing the strength of the various prodigies. All in all, the entire pugilistic world was abnormally lively. Apart from the reputation gained from the competition, the rewards from the competition also caused everyone to be in an uproar. The Xianyuan clan has taken out the 1 heaven primordial water as a reward for the prodigy disciples. The Yuan clan has taken out a level 1 array spirit gathering formation as a reward for the prodigy disciples. The Holy Medicine Immortal Sect has taken out 2 level 7 pills as a reward for the disciples. Each and every one of them was richly rewarded, especially yesterday, when the Xianyuan clan announced an important matter for the competition. Apart from the 20 immortal sects, the Dragon Gate was invited to participate in the Immortal Sect competition this time. The Dragon King of the Dragon Gate had custom-made a level 13 spirit weapon for the Heavens Chosen. When this news came out, everyone was in an uproar. A grade 13 spirit weapon. Nowadays, even immortals and gods might not be able to own a grade 13 spirit weapon. The winning Heaven's favorites would be qualified to obtain a grade 13 spirit weapon. One could imagine how precious it was. The atmosphere of the entire martial arts world was ignited to the extreme. All the disciples of the immortal sects were filled with fighting spirit. "Hey brother, which immortal sect is that over there? There are so many beautiful women!" Just as they walked out of the small town and Wang Xian and the rest were about to board the airship, a group of people from the immortal sect beside them walked forward. "Fengyan Immortal Sect. Only the Fengyan Immortal Sect is filled with women." Wang Xian glanced at Xiaoyu and said with a smile. "No wonder there isn't a single man. I heard that their immortal sect has a beauty who is the best in terms of beauty. I wonder if she is prettier than her sisters-in-law." Xiaoyu looked at them curiously. Guan Shuqing, Lan Qingwei and the rest smiled and said, "Xiaoyu cares about beauties? I heard that beauty Xiaoyu say the handsome guy. I wonder if that handsome guy has given himself to her." "Aya, what pretty girls say the handsome guy? What kind of handsome guy is he? He is far worse than my brother." Xiaoyu heard their teasing and blushed slightly. She quickly said, "Oh, is that so? Our Xiaoyu is not young anymore. Let us keep an eye on you. If you meet a good man, you can marry him." "Ha ha!" A few girls teased Xiaoyu. This made her pout. She hugged Wang Xian's arm and said that her sisters-in-law were bullying her. Wang Xian smiled at the side and said, "If you want to find a boyfriend, I agree. In this competition of the top 20 prodigies of the immortal sects, if there's anyone you like, tell me. I'll propose a marriage for you." "Ha ha!" Brother, even you are teasing me. I'm ignoring you. When Xiaoyu saw that Wang Xian was not defending her, she tugged at his arm angrily. Little girl, you're not young anymore. Wang Xian patted her head lovingly. Humph. Xiaoyu rolled her eyes at him and pouted her lips without saying another word. That is? Dragon King of the Dragon Gate. At this moment, a group of people from the Fengyan celestial sect also saw Wang Xian and the rest. The two women standing in the middle looked over with a hint of surprise in their eyes. According to the information we received, the Dragon Gate has 2 intermediate immortals, 1 lower immortal, and 50 to 60 infant stage powerhouses. A woman's eyes flickered as she spoke. Indeed, they are all infant realm experts. All of them are following behind him. It seems that the Dragon Gate doesn't have any ordinary disciples. The weakest one is also an infant realm expert. They should be participating in the grand competition. There are a total of 3 immortal gods. The water blue staff in the woman's hand flickered with specks of light. Each speck of light was different in size. This was a method of detection. It's better not to provoke such a force. No ordinary disciples means no worries. Besides, the strength of this Dragon Gate can be ranked at the top among all the immortal sects. The woman next to her said, indifferently. Qing 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 and the other disciples of the immortal sects heard the conversation between the 2 immortal gods and revealed shocked expressions. They looked over and were filled with astonishment. A faction in the real world was participating in the competition of the disciples of the immortal sects together with the 20 immortal sections. Their strength was so terrifying that many immortal sects were afraid of them. The young clan leader of the Thunder clan had his limbs cut off. The Thunder clan did not have any reaction to this. The Dragon Gate could be considered to be walking in the sight of all the immortal sections. Wang Xian and the rest came to the airship and flew directly in the direction of the Xianyuan clan. This airship was gifted by the Puppet Immortal sect and was similar to the airship of the Innate Immortal sect. The location where the Xianyuan cauldron appeared was not far from Shangjing. The Xianyuan clan and the Yuan clan were the 2 great immortal sects within the sect. The Xianyuan clan and the Yuan clan were also ranked in the top 5 among all the immortal sections. The immortal sect disciple competition this time was held within the Xianyuan clan. The ancient immortal sects and clans like to place their foundations in the mountains, and the Xianyuan clan was no exception. The airship arrived in the sky above a group of mountains. The mountain stream was filled with the chirping of cranes and the chirping of apes. It was filled with an ancient charm. May I know which immortal sect is here? Welcome! A voice was heard. Following that, a figure stood on the spirit sword and shouted at Wang Xian and the rest on the airship. Dragon Gate! Wang Xian looked at the half-step immortal god powerhouse of the Xianyuan clan and said in a deep voice. So it's Dragon Gate. You must be the Dragon King. Please follow me. The middle-aged man bowed to Wang Xian and guided him. Sorry for the trouble. Wang Xian nodded. The airship landed on a huge square under the middle-aged man's guidance. At this moment, there were already quite a number of airships in the square. There were also people from other immortal sects around them. Dragon King, we have already arranged a mountain peak for all of you to live on. Please! The middle-aged man from the Xianyuan clan gestured to Wang Xian. Okay. Wang Xian nodded his head. Everyone followed behind the middle-aged man and walked forward. Dragon King, this is the mountain peak where you live at Dragon Gate. The rooms inside are sufficient for all of you to live in, the middle-aged man said to Wang Xian respectfully. Wang Xian came to participate in this competition as a big shot. A top-notch powerhouse who was on equal footing with the 20 immortal sections. The Xianyuan clan didn't dare to be the slightest bit negligent. Chapter 773, Immortals. Brother, are there any disciples from the Dragon Gate participating in this prodigy competition? If the Golden Swordfish clan were to participate, they would definitely be able to sweep through all the immortal sects. On a single mountain peak, ancient buildings were built on top of the mountain peak. They were filled with an immortal aura. This was the welcoming peak of the Xianyuan clan. It was specially prepared for the people from the immortal sections. Xiao Yu looked around and asked Wang Xian with a smile. No, there's no need to earn these things. If you want to participate in the competition, I can directly report your name. It's a little difficult for the Golden Swordfish clan to sweep the competition. Wang Xian smiled and shook his head. He wasn't planning to send his disciples to participate. It wasn't meaningful to the Dragon Gate. During the competition, he would lead a group of Dragon Gate members to watch the competition from the viewing platform of the Immortal Gate. At that time, their strength would naturally be seen by all the immortal sections. Naturally, they would be able to serve as a deterrent. There was no need for the Dragon Gate members to participate in the competition. Furthermore, among the Dragon Gate members, those under the age of 40 were at the infant stage. It would be difficult for them to get first place or even the top 3. The disciples of the Immortal Gate were not jealous, especially the most talented ones. Take Feng Lingtian for example. His strength was not bad. When Xiao Yu had not reached the half-step Immortal God realm, it was difficult for him to defeat him. The current members of the Dragon Gate were not as strong as Xiao Yu. After all, the strength of the Bone Dragon was not something that the Draconids could match. Unless Wang Xian called the Golden Swordfish clan over. Participating in the Prodigy competition would be an age test. Using the array compass, one would be able to determine how long a person had lived. The lifespan of the Golden Swordfish was mostly 20 to 30 years. Even Ao Jian was only over 50 years old. The Golden Swordfish clan had 2 half-step immortal deity disciples and 68 infant realm experts. If they were to come, they could not guarantee that they could sweep all the prodigies. However, it should not be a problem to sweep 90% of them. However, there was no need for them to come. It was better to let them cultivate in the Dragon Palace. I'm not going to participate. At most, I'll be a little stronger than Feng Lingtian. Going there is simply a torture for noobs. Xiao Yu curled her lips and said with some disdain. Now, her strength was almost comparable to that of an immortal god. None of the heaven's favorites would be a match for her. Let's just take a look at the strength of the immortal sect and the heaven's favorites. Let's just treat it as a vacation, Wang Xian said with a smile. Xianyuan Qingyuan from the Xianyuan clan. Xianyuan Fenghua is here to pay a visit to the Dragon King. At this moment, a middle-aged voice came from outside. Wang Xian's heart skipped a beat. Sensing the 2 immortals outside, he smiled and said, Brothers, please come in. Haha, Dragon King, we have brought some spirit wine that is unique to the Xianyuan clan. Let's have a drink with you. The 2 immortals from the Xianyuan clan were the 2 who came to deliver the invitation last time. They had received some benefits from Wang Xian. It was only right for them to come over to entertain him this time. Wang Xian smiled and welcomed them into the hall. The few of them sat at the table and started chatting with some spirit dishes and the immortal wine that was unique to the Xianyuan clan. After having a meal with them, Wang Xian had a more detailed understanding of the 20 immortal sections. Currently, the Xianyuan clan was acknowledged to be the strongest, followed by the Yuan clan, followed by the Wild Beast Immortal sect. After that, the 2 immortal sects, Holy Medicine and Holy Doctor, would join forces. This was because these 2 immortal sects were basically indistinguishable from each other. Behind them were the True Martial Immortal Academy and the Strange Thorn clan. However, this was only the ranking on the surface. This was because the 2 immortal sects, Holy Medicine and Holy Doctor, occupied the same cauldron. If they hid their strength, no one else would know. It was also unknown whether the other immortal sects had hidden their strength. Currently, there were 3 upper gods in the immortal sects on the surface. It was unknown whether they would still exist in the dark. Xianyuan Qingyuan and the others would also not tell Wang Xian about their immortal sect's trump card. After a meal, they gained some understanding of the strength of the 20 immortal sections. For the heaven's favorites of the immortal sects, this competition was a chance to show off their strength and make a name for themselves. For the immortals, it was a chance to learn more about the strength of the other immortal sects as well as the potential of their disciples. It was also a chance to show off the strength of their disciples. After all, the immortals forbade fighting now. The strength of the disciples of the immortal sects was the key combat strength of an immortal sect. Dragon King, the selection of the disciples of the immortal sects will begin at 9 o'clock tomorrow. The competition will last for 3 days, and the final day will decide the winner. This time, not only 20 disciples of the immortal sects will participate in the competition. In every world of the tripod, there are not only the immortal sects, but also some small forces and small clans. If the disciples of those small forces and small clans are outstanding, the immortal sects can throw out an olive branch. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, all the immortals from the immortal sects will come to Xianyuan Peak of the Xianyuan clan to hand over the reward items to us first. We will place them on the Heaven's Pride stage. In addition, we can also meet them in advance. Before leaving, Xianyuan Qingyuan and Xianyuan Fenghua reminded Wang Xian. All right. Wang Xian nodded and sent them off. I will meet the immortals from the immortal sects tomorrow. After sending the two of them away, the corner of Wang Xian's mouth curled up slightly. Among the 20 immortal sects, there should be no less than 40 immortals coming this time. They were practically the pillars of the entire Jianghu and were the strongest. Outside, the immortal sects came to their respective mountain peaks. For this grand competition, not a single immortal sect would be absent. Some of the disciples from the immortal sects came in the thousands, at least 400 to 500 people. The Dragon Gate was considered a very small number. However, in terms of the number of powerhouses, the infant stage powerhouses from the Dragon Gate could definitely be ranked in the top 3. Guan Shuqing, Lan Qingwei, and Xiaoyu, the 6 girls, stood on the peak and read the posts gossiping about the heavens favorites from the immortal sections. They were chatting very enthusiastically. Wang Xian walked up and smiled faintly. He looked around. Heaven's favorite disciple? A genius that only appears once in 10,000 years? The strongest person among the disciples of the immortal sects? In front of him, he was already Yin Yan. He was already standing at an even higher position. Those heaven's favorites who were older than him were merely a junior. Their heights were no longer the same. Wang Xian no longer had the towering presence that he had when competing with the heaven's favorites. Dong dong dong! The next morning, around 8:40 a.m., the bell rang. Please follow me to the battleground, Dragon Gate disciples. Please follow me to Xianyuan Peak. A disciple of the Xianyuan clan came to the foot of the mountain peak and said loudly, Xiao Yu, Qin Yu, Ling Xiu, you guys go to the battleground first. Xu Qing, Ao Jian, let's go to Xianyuan Peak. Wang Xian said to them. The 5 girls nodded and led a group of Dragon Gate members to follow the Xianyuan clan disciples to the battleground. Wang Xian and Guan Shuqing Ao Jian flew towards the Xianyuan Peak. The Xianyuan Peak was the largest peak of the Xianyuan clan. The peak towered into the clouds and reached 4,000 to 5,000 meters tall. The peak of the Xianyuan Peak was called the Immortal Stage. It was located in the clouds and mist and was mysterious and ethereal. Mingwang Immortal Sect, Holy Medicine Immortal Sect, Holy Doctor Immortal Sect, True Martial Immortal Academy. In midair, Wang Xian heard voices coming from the Immortal Stage. Wang Xian raised his head slightly and a faint aura emanated from his body. Dragon Gate. Chapter 774, Friend and Foe. Dragon Gate! A faint voice resonated throughout the immortal spiritual pedestal. Wang Xian flew over with Guan Shuqing and Ao Jian. Dragon Gate! At this moment, all the immortals from the major immortal sects who had arrived at the immortal spiritual pedestal looked over. Dragon Gate and Dragon King were a very special force to all the immortal sections. They were not from the 8 Cauldrons world, nor were they from an immortal sect that had been passed down for a long time. Instead, they were an overlord of the Jianghu in the past. However, this overlord that they had overlooked at the beginning possessed terrifying strength. There were at least 3 immortal gods. 2 of them might be middle immortals, and there were 50 to 60 infant stage powerhouses. Just this top-notch combat strength alone was enough to suppress most of the immortal sections. Dozens of gazes were fixed on him. Wang Xian swept his gaze across everyone on the stage and revealed a faint smile. Ling Xiao from the Yellow Heaven Immortal Sect. Nice to meet you. A middle-aged man swept his gaze across the three of them and finally landed on Wang Xian. He cupped his hands with a smile on his face. Nice to meet you, Wang Xian. Wang Xian cupped his hands with a smile. Ling Xiao was Feng Lingtian's father. However, what puzzled him was why Feng Lingtian and Ling Xiao didn't share the same surname. Naturally, he didn't ask about it out of curiosity. Dragon King! Elder Mu and the Queen of Flowers from the innate immortal sect walked to Wang Xian's side with smiles on their faces. They greeted him with a smile. Dragon King! 3 immortals from the Puppet Immortal Sect and the Mingwang Immortal Sect came over to greet him with smiles on their faces. Elder Mu, Queen of Flowers, everyone! Wang Xian nodded his head in a friendly manner. These few immortal sects were on the friendly side. This was especially so for the Natural-Born Immortal Sect and the Yellow Heaven Immortal Sect. It's better to meet than to be famous. The Dragon King became an immortal god in his 20s. He is as dazzling as the bright sun in the sky. An old man from the Xianyuan clan, who was dressed in yellow, walked over slowly. His eyes were filled with curiosity as he looked at Wang Xian. Haha, Liao Zhan. Speaking of which, I would like to thank the Xianyuan clan for their invitation to the Dragon Sect this time. Wang Xian laughed out loud and looked at the old man. His heart skipped a beat. His strength should be the strength of the supreme elder of the Xianyuan clan that Xianyuan Fenghua had mentioned, a superior immortal. The Dragon Gate has the strength and the qualifications to do so. The old man smiled with a face full of smiles. Hee hee, young hero! At this moment, a faint mocking voice came from the side. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and looked around. In the arena, all the immortal sects had basically arrived. The Natural-Born Immortal Sect, Yellow Heaven Immortal Sect, Puppet Immortal Sect, and Mingwang Immortal Sect had basically maintained a friendly relationship. However, there were also some people whose eyes were slightly cold. Among the 6 immortals from the Saint Medicine Immortal Sect and the Saint Doctor Immortal Sect who came this time, the green-robed elder whom they met last time was also among them. Apart from that, an elder from the Chaos Origin Immortal Sect's eyes were filled with killing intent. As for the Ice God clan that was emitting an icy intent, the Thunder clan's eyes that were filled with terrifying lightning rays were not very friendly. The immortal gods from the Yongchang Immortal Sect, the Immortal Slaying Path, and the Great Flood Immortal Sect looked at him with a slightly complicated expression. The other immortal sects were filled with curiosity. In the arena, there were a few factions that were clearly in a hostile state. The one who spoke was the green-robed elder from the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect. He narrowed his eyes slightly and stared at him. Wang Xian looked at the green-robed elder with a cold expression on his face. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly. Naturally, you can't compare to him. Haha, good, good. You have guts. When the green-robed elder heard Wang Xian's words, he smiled coldly with an emerald-green glow flickering on his body. Of course you have guts! Guan Shuqing, who was at the side, smiled as she held on to Wang Xian's arm. She stared at the green-robed elder with fire in her eyes. The green-robed elder turned his gaze to Guan Shuqing. The corners of his eyes twitched slightly. Dragon King, you blocked the city gate of our Hunyuan Immortal Sect and killed the elders and disciples of our Hunyuan Immortal Sect. We will remember this! At this moment, the Supreme Elder of the Hunyuan Immortal Sect stared at Wang Xian with murderous intent in his eyes. So what if I block your immortal sect and kill your elders and disciples? Closing the city gate for 4 days is just a joke among all the immortal sects. Before Wang Xian could speak, Ling Xiao stared at the Supreme Elder of the Hunyuan Immortal Sect and said directly, All right, everyone. Today is the day of the grand competition of the immortal sections. Let's put aside our grudges for now. Seeing the frozen atmosphere around them, the old man from the Xianyuan clan chuckled and slowly charged forward with his aura. Just now, with the aura of the entire immortal stage, even a half-step immortal god expert would feel his breathing freeze when he stood there. The old man's strength was incomparably terrifying. With just a single charge, all of his aura vanished into thin air. The disciple competition is about to begin. Everyone, Hand over the rewards to us first. Grudges, hand them over to me. As immortal gods, we are forbidden to act. Dragon King, you should know about the Immortal God Agreement, right? An elder from the Yuan clan walked to the side of the elder from the Xianyuan clan and echoed his words. He did not want to say the last sentence. However, seeing that the Dragon King was full of energy, and was going against the few great immortal sects, he had no choice but to remind him based on the previous information. Of course I know! Wan Xian smiled faintly. With a wave of his arm, a grade 13 spirit sword appeared in his hand. First, place a grade 13 spirit weapon here. Finally, tailor-made. Dragon King, your reward is considered the most precious among the 21 immortal sects. The elder from the Yuan clan took the spirit sword and said with a smile. Wan Xian smiled nonchalantly. He looked at the puppet immortal sect and the Mingwang immortal sect and said, Brother Fengma and Feng Sha, if you want to forge a grade 13 spirit weapon, you can look for me. All right, Dragon King. We will relay the message. The few immortal gods nodded and looked at Guan Shuqing, who was at the side. They were slightly surprised in their hearts. According to the introduction of the two brothers Fengma and Feng Sha, there were no female immortal gods who had charged into Yuding. Now, there was another female immortal god who was at the middle immortal level beside the Dragon King. This Dragon Gate was even stronger than they had imagined. They could not help but feel lucky that it did not turn into a fight back then. Since that's the case, let's go to the competition grounds. The elder of the Xianyuan clan held all the rewards in his hands. He scanned the surroundings and said faintly, Let's go then. The group of immortals nodded. Their bodies moved and carried the might of immortals. They flew toward the competition grounds like immortals descending from the heavens. Let's go! Wan Xian said to Guan Shuqing and Ao Jian. The three of them flew through the air. At this moment, in the Xianyuan clan's arena, the arena was circular. There were a total of 22 platforms. Apart from one platform that represented the scattered sects, the rest of the platforms were filled with disciples from the immortal sections. On the 22 platforms, they were already densely packed with disciples from the immortal sections. Each immortal sect had at least 400 to 500 people, and there were at least thousands of people. In the middle of the 22 platforms, there were huge arenas. Each of the arenas had a radius of 1,000 meters. They were enveloped by a blue energy. This arena seemed to only have a radius of 1 kilometer, but it actually had a radius of 4 to 5 kilometers. It was just that the Yuan clan had used a formation to make it appear to only have a radius of 1 kilometer. Chapter 775. The competition began. The gathering of 21 powerful forces is simply an unprecedented event. All the heavens' favorites are here. Is that the Dragon Gate? There are so few of them. However, it is said that none of the disciples of the Dragon Gate are below the infant realm. I really didn't expect that there would be such a terrifying force in the pugilistic world. I heard that the one who blocked the city gate of the Hunyuan Immortal Gate was an expert of the Dragon Gate. It's simply too domineering. That's Xianyuan Fingi from the Xianyuan clan. Xianyuan Fingi has a very high chance of winning the first place in this Heaven's Favorites competition. His Xianyuan spirit sword can shock the sun and the moon. Yuan Hua from the Yuan clan is also very powerful. He might also win the first place in this Heaven's Favorites competition. Look at the position of the Fengyan Immortal Sect. The one standing at the front is Cheng Qingqing. She is simply too beautiful. How nice it would be if I could get close to her. Cheng Qingqing, Xianyuan Yuner, Flower Fairy, Hua Fairy, and all the other peerless beauties have arrived. Today's trip was not in vain. In the genius competition, whoever gets the first place will be the bright moon that suppresses the same generation, the king of geniuses among the younger generation. The competition hasn't started yet. No one can be sure who is the king of geniuses, and who can suppress the same generation. This is too exciting. The king of heaven's favorites, a genius who can suppress an era. A genius who is as bright as the moon in the sky. Who will be the winner? On the 22 platforms, all the disciples of the immortal sects were discussing excitedly. On the 22 platforms of the immortal sects, the seated participants of the immortal sects stood at the front with proud faces. Each of the youths had a lofty head, and their bodies were exuding powerful confidence and proud expressions. They were the most powerful existences among the current generation of disciples of the immortal sections. They were the strongest disciples of the current generation of the immortal sects, and they had the strength to be proud of themselves. And everyone was also talking about these disciples. Perhaps other than them, only beautiful women with peerless beauty could make the people around them talk. However, this time, the main character was a heaven's favorite. Who could suppress an era? Who was the king of heaven's favorites? Boom! 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 At this moment, an immortal god with terrifying power flew over from the immortal platform. It's Lord Immortal God and the others! That's the Grand Elder of the Xianyuan clan, a high-level immortal, one of the most powerful people in the current generation. That's the Grand Elder of the Yuan clan. The sect masters of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect and the Holy Doctor Immortal Sect. When the immortal gods that seemed to be carrying the power of a small world flew over one after another, the immortal gods were like the shining sun, causing people to feel fear in their hearts. The slightly noisy sounds in the battleground quickly quieted down, and the immortal sect disciples raised their heads to look at the immortal gods in awe. Even the most outstanding disciples of the immortal sects were filled with awe and yearning. Only by stepping into the immortal realm could one transcend from the mortal realm, and truly transcend from the mortal realm. Dragon King of the Dragon Gate, that's the Dragon King. He's so young. It's said that the Dragon King is only in his 20s. Suddenly, a slightly high and surprised voice was heard. The 7,000 to 8,000 people around looked at the young man who was walking in the air. He was dressed in black and there was a picture of a 5-colored divine dragon on it. The Dragon King, who was giving off an imposing aura, was full of endless majesty. He's an immortal god in his 20s. The founder of the Dragon Gate is only in his 20s. The prodigy competition? With the Dragon King's age, all the prodigies in the competition are probably older than the Dragon King, right? Even if a young prodigy becomes a prodigy king, he's just an ant in front of the Dragon King, right? Some people suddenly whispered, and then their expressions became strange. Prodigy king? Suppressing the same era? Compared to a mid-level immortal in his 20s, who was the founder of a force that could rival immortal sects, the so-called prodigy king might only be considered pretty good in his eyes. In an instant, even the strongest disciples of immortal sects looked a little dazed. All the immortal gods came to the sky above their respective immortal sects, and looked down at all the disciples of the immortal sections. Today will be the first Heaven's Chosen Disciple competition of China's Jianghu. Every disciple who makes it onto the list represents the glory of an immortal sect. Those who make it onto the list will be rewarded by the immortal sect. As the Grand Elder of the Xianyuan clan spoke, he waved his arm and items flew directly to a huge pillar of light in the middle. According to the ranking, the rewards will be selected in order. The most precious item is an immortal artifact that the Dragon King of the Dragon Gate made. I now announce that the grand competition of the disciples of the Immortal Gate has officially begun. The voice of the Grand Elder of the Xianyuan clan rang out in everyone's ears. The group of immortals slowly landed on the platform of the disciples of the Immortal Gate. There were seats at the very front. So many treasures. The reward for being able to enter the top 21 is simply too crazy. The lowest is a grade 7 medicinal pill. The most precious thing is actually an immortal god weapon. Moreover, it's a custom-made immortal god weapon. It's too rich. The Dragon King is not only a middle-level immortal, but also a Grand Master of artifact refining. He can create immortal god weapons. If the first place in this grand competition is the bright moon, then the Dragon King is the radiant sun. Once the radiant sun appears, the bright moon loses its splendor. The disciples of the immortal sects looked at the objects in the light pillar in amazement, their eyes shining with a fiery light. At the same time, all the disciples of the immortal sects were full of exclamations toward the Dragon King. Even the beauties on the Peerless Beauty chart all looked toward the Dragon Gate stage. However, when they saw the 6 women sitting together with the Dragon King on the stage, they were slightly stunned. Each of the 6 women was more beautiful than the other. In terms of temperament and appearance, they were definitely comparable to the top 5 beauties on the Supreme Beauty chart, or even higher. At the beginning of the grand competition, there are 5 arenas in the arena. Except for the 20 seated contestants, 21 disciples will be selected from all the disciples of the immortal sections. They will compete with the 20 seated contestants for the 21 spots. All strength is respected. There are no rules on the arenas. The winner is the king, and a life and death battle can be decided. The grand competition began. The rules stated that the winner was the king, and a life and death battle could be decided. This was a heaven's chosen competition, and it was also a battle between immortal sections. The immortals and gods did an act, so the grudges had to be settled in the disciple competition. This meant that this battle would be very bloody, and people would die in it. The so-called genius competition was also a war between the immortal sections. The hatred could be resolved here. The immortal gods were the chess players, and the disciples of the immortal sex were the chess pieces. They controlled the chess pieces and played the game. Start the disciple competition of the immortal sex. A loud shout sounded out, indicating that the disciple competition of the immortal sex had begun. In an instant, all the confident young geniuses were filled with fighting spirit. Among the immortal sex, my Xian Yuan clan is the strongest. I, Xian Yuan Hao, will be the first to appear. Who wants to fight? A disciple of the Xian Yuan clan moved and directly jumped onto an arena in the center. He raised his head slightly and spoke arrogantly. Chapter 776, Provoked. The disciple competition officially began. The disciples of the Xian Yuan clan stepped out, and proudly announced that the Xian Yuan clan was the strongest existence among all the immortal sections. This was a display of the immortal sex, and also a strong confidence. The competition itself was a declaration of the strength of the immortal sex, so the disciples of the Xian Yuan clan did not keep a low profile. They proudly glanced at all the disciples of the immortal sex around them. A few immortal gods and disciples of the Xian Yuan clan looked at Xian Yuan Hao with smiles on their faces. Xian Yuan Hao, who was the first to appear, was definitely not ordinary. For a time, no one came to challenge him. If there aren't any, I'll take one of the 21 spots. The corner of Xian Yuan Hao's mouth slightly curled up as he announced confidently. Xian Yuan Hao is the most outstanding disciple besides Xian Yuan Fengyi. He has the strength of an infant realm cultivator and has 2 grade 12 spirit weapons. His strength is very terrifying. Xian Yuan Hao dared to come out for the first time. He must have great confidence and strength. His strength is comparable to some seated disciples of the immortal sex. The surrounding disciples of the immortal sex discussed in a low voice. This person is really arrogant. Are all the disciples of the immortal sex so arrogant? Xiao Yu looked at Xian Yuan Hao below and curled her lips as she said. He is showing off the strength of the Xian Yuan clan. At this moment, the disciples are outstanding and represent the immortal sex. Wan Xian said lightly with a smile. No one from the Xian Yuan clan accepted the challenge. Next, a disciple from the Yuan clan also went up. No one accepted the challenge. Xiao Xian, look! This disciple from the Wild Beast Immortal sect looks like a wild beast. The third person who went up was a disciple from the Wild Beast clan. He was extremely tall and sturdy. He was about 3 meters tall and exuded a ferocious aura. Wan Xian looked over and narrowed his eyes slightly. There are 2 immortal gods in the Wild Beasts Immortal sect. Both of them are spirit beasts. The strongest golden lion can speak human language and has the strength of a superior immortal. The disciples of the Wild Beasts Immortal sect are not only humans, but also spirit beasts. It's really magical. Lan Qingwei and the other girls exclaimed in surprise. Even when the disciples of the Wild Beasts Immortal sect entered the arena, no one dared to accept the challenge. Disciple of the Holy Doctor Immortal sect, Bien Poisonous Dragon, come and challenge me. After the disciples of the Wild Beast Immortal sect left the arena, a young man flew out from the direction of the Holy Doctor Immortal sect. He was holding a black scepter in his hand. On the head of the scepter was the head of a black poisonous snake. It looked sinister and terrifying. He stood on the arena and scanned his surroundings. Finally, he suddenly looked in the direction of the Dragon Gate. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly as he asked arrogantly, "Huh?" Wang Xian raised his eyebrows when he saw the young man's gaze. "Is there anyone who wants to challenge me?" The young man's gaze was still fixed on the Dragon Gate's platform. He raised his head slightly and his eyes were filled with a cold expression. He raised his voice and shouted, "This is—" All the other disciples of the Immortal sect were slightly stunned. Even the immortal gods were smiling as they watched this scene. The immortal gods were the chess players, and the disciples of the Immortal sects were the chess pieces. With the relationship between the Holy Medicine Immortal sect and the Dragon sect, the immortal gods' chess pieces moved. Naturally, they wanted to use the chess pieces to embarrass the Dragon sect. Why didn't the Dragon sect have any disciples participate in this competition? The Dragon sect should have disciples under the age of 40, and their strength has reached the infant realm. Maybe they think that their disciples are not strong enough. There is still a big gap between the battle strength of the infant realm. The Dragon sect has only been established for a few years. No matter how powerful the Dragon King is, he can't be compared with the Holy Medicine Immortal sect and the Holy Medicine Immortal sect. I didn't expect the Holy Medicine Immortal sect and the Dragon Gate to have a conflict. These two immortal sects have more than 1,000 years of foundation. This flat poison dragon poison wood technique is very terrifying. I feel that among the 21 disciples who won in the end, he is definitely one of them. If the Dragon Gate doesn't have any disciples, it will be a little embarrassing. The surrounding disciples of the Immortal sect looked at the flat poison dragon who was staring at the Dragon Gate and started to discuss. "Let me have a taste of Brother Bien Du Long." At this moment, a young man flew out from the natural-born Immortal sect and landed on the arena, staring at Bien Du Long. Eh? When the surrounding disciples saw the natural-born Immortal sect's disciple making a move, they were also slightly stunned, and their faces revealed a look of surprise and doubt. "Are you courting death?" Bien Du Long saw a disciple from the natural-born Immortal sect making a move to destroy the arena, and a cold expression appeared on his face. "My hands are itchy, so I made a move once," the young man said to Bien Du Long indifferently. At the same time, he was sending a message that they, the innate Immortal sect, would only make a move once. This was a message to the Holy Medicine Immortal sect and the Holy Doctor Immortal sect. At the same time, it was also a message to Wang Xian. The innate Immortal sect was cooperating with the Dragon sect. Making a move once could be considered to be doing their best. If you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for being merciless. The cold-faced young man moved and attacked. With a wave of his arm, the terrifying black poisonous wood instantly grew crazily under his feet. The poisonous wood was filled with sharp thorns and contained a terrifying poison. The young man from the innate Immortal sect had a solemn expression. Similarly, the green trees around him also grew. The first battle began. "Pun! Brother, that fellow is too arrogant. He is clearly provoking us. I will teach him a good lesson." At this moment, Xiao Yu slapped the chair and stood up with an angry expression. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes and said, "Sit down, Xiao Yu. Even if you were to make a move, you don't have to make a move. Moreover, if you were to make a move, it wouldn't be as simple as teaching him a lesson." He looked towards the positions of the Holy Medicine sect and the Holy Doctor sect. He met the cold and mocking expressions of the 6 celestials of the green-robed elder and the rest. The disciples of the Holy Medicine Immortal sect also looked over with their heads held high. Wang Xian smiled and knocked on the chair indifferently. I admit defeat." At this moment, a scream came from below. The face of the young man from the innate Immortal sect turned black. Black blood spewed from the corner of his mouth as he shouted in fear. "HMPH, you dare to challenge me? You don't know death." The pitch-black thorn in the flat poison dragon's hand swung heavily towards the young man. The powerful force caused him to fly backwards as he spoke with a face full of disdain. Pun! An innate immortal sect elder finished off the young man with an embarrassed expression. What a killjoy! The young man held the black poisonous snake scepter in his hand as he spoke with disdain. His gaze directly turned towards the direction of the Dragon Gate. Originally, I wanted to challenge the disciples of the Dragon Gate, but in the end, I actually became a coward. Disciples of the Dragon Gate, you are welcome to fight at any time. Ha ha ha, our Holy Medicine Immortal Gate and the Holy Doctor Immortal Gate will accept all of them. The flat poison dragon laughed loudly and flew directly in the direction of his immortal gate. Dragon King, since you are here, don't be a spectator. Come out and play. Can't you be a disciple? At this moment, an indifferent voice filled the entire battleground. At the position of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect, an immortal said with slight mockery. Everyone was shocked and held their breaths as they looked over. Play? All right. Tomorrow, the life and death battle between the young disciples of the sect, can you accept it? Wang Xian looked over with a smile. A trace of coldness flashed in his eyes as he asked indifferently. Our Holy Medicine Immortal Sect and Holy Doctor Immortal Sect have been around for 1,000 years. Why would we be afraid of a newly established dragon sect? The immortals from Holy Doctor Immortal Sect and Holy Medicine Immortal Sect laughed maniacally as they spoke loudly. Their voices spread across a radius of dozens of kilometers. This was the confidence of the two immortal sects that had been around for 1,000 years. Chapter 777. Million people were watching. Boom! A life and death battle. A life and death battle between the Dragon Gate and the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect. The conversation between the Dragon King and the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect master thoroughly stirred up all the disciples of the Immortal Sect in the surroundings. A life and death battle between young disciples. Is this a complete massacre? How can there be such hatred between the Dragon Gate and the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect? It's said that the Dragon King has exterminated the clansmen of the previous two immortal sects in the real world. The Dragon King is not rational. The Holy Medicine Immortal Sect and the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect have been passed down for thousands of years and have an unfathomable foundation. On the surface, they already have 2 middle-level immortals, 8 lower-level immortals, and tens of millions of disciples. How can the Dragon Gate compare with the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect and the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect? This is the dignity of immortals. If the Dragon King doesn't express his stance, I'm afraid that the disciples of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect and the Holy Doctor Immortal Sect will continue to provoke them. Then, the Dragon Sect will lose a lot of face in the future. I heard that in order to appear in the world, the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect and the Holy Doctor Immortal Sect have taken out many precious medicinal pills. There are more than a dozen infant realm experts among the disciples under the age of 40. I heard that Huagujiang, the strongest disciple of the two immortal sects, has already reached the half-step immortal realm. The group of immortal sect disciples discussed in a low voice. Their faces were filled with astonishment. The Dragon Sect versus the Holy Doctor Immortal Sect and the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect was a major event in the martial arts world, especially the life and death battle. It was a battle that would not stop until one of them died. In the martial arts world, I, the Dragon King, have never been afraid of anyone. I hope that one of us will survive in the near future. When Wang Xian heard the arrogant laughter of the sect leader of the Holy Medicine Sect, he laughed out loud as well. He stared at them fearlessly. Good. Upon hearing Wang Xian's words, the faces of all the immortals from the Holy Medicine Sect and the Holy Medicine Sect darkened. I hope the Dragon King will remember what you said today. Their eyes were filled with a crazy killing intent as they stared at Wang Xian coldly. Wang Xian stared at them without showing any signs of weakness. His eyes were also filled with coldness. What was there to fear from the two immortal sects? Hiss! All the disciples of the immortal sects around sucked in a breath of cold air. Even if they were not fighting together, this tit-for-tat aura still caused everyone's scalps to go numb, and their hearts to be filled with fear. This Dragon King is indeed the same as what was recorded in the information. The two supreme elders of the Xianyuan clan and the Yuan clan looked at each other. All the other immortal gods shook their heads slightly, which was exactly the same as what was recorded in the information. No matter who the Dragon King of the Dragon Gate was, as long as he provoked him, he would never lower his head. Many people were still very afraid of such a force. However, the two immortal sects, Holy Medicine and Holy Doctor, were not among them. All the immortal gods were filled with fear, even fear, towards these two immortal sects that were closely related to each other. Even the Xianyuan clan didn't dare to say that they didn't take them seriously. The combined strength of these two immortal sects was definitely much more terrifying than on the surface. Su Yuanjia of the True Martial Immortal Academy. The atmosphere was silent for a while. Then, a disciple of the True Martial Immortal Academy moved his body and flew directly onto the arena. He cupped his hands towards the surroundings and then stared coldly at the Strange Thorn clan. Does anyone from the Strange Thorn tribe dare to fight with me? I hope that you won't be afraid. There is a conflict between the True Martial Immortal Academy and the Strange Thorn tribe. When they first appeared in this world, there was a conflict between them, which led to a battle between immortals. The Dragon Gate and the Holy Medicine Holy Doctor sect have made a start. The real battle is about to begin. The True Martial Immortal Academy and the Strange Thorn tribe had a grudge against each other. The Yongchang Immortal sect and the Ji tribe had a conflict. Furthermore, there was a conflict between the immortal sects in the Yongchang region and the immortal sects in the Ji Ding region. The life and death battle between Wang Xian and the sect leader of the Holy Medicine Immortal sect could be considered to have started. Intense battles began one after another. The entire Heaven's Pride Grand Competition was more intense than expected, and it was still brutal. The victorious disciples of the Immortal sect cheered, mocked, and provoked. The defeated Immortal sect could only watch with an embarrassed expression. This is not a Heaven's Pride Grand Competition at all, but a game between immortals and gods. On the stage, Sun Linxiu looked at the battles below and said with a frown, "That's right. Immortals and gods are forbidden to fight. We have to settle our grudges somewhere else." Wang Xian nodded his head. He finally understood that the so-called competition between heaven's favorites was a competition between the immortal sections. At first, he thought of not letting the disciples of the Dragon Gate fight. But now, it seemed like, since they had made a move, they would regret it a lot and let them know the outcome. The competition went on, and the smell of gunpowder gradually subsided. Some disciples of the Immortal Gate who had no grudges went up to fight for the 21 spots. Those who could come out to fight were at least in the infant stage. The disciples of the Dan stage and half-step Dan stage didn't have the information to go up to the stage. It was a true battle between heaven's favorites and the core disciples of the immortal sections. It's almost certain now that the Xianyuan clan has 4 people in the top 21, the Yuan clan has 2, the Wild Beast Immortal sect has 3, and the Holy Medicine Holy Doctor Immortal sect has 4. The powerful immortal sects occupy a lot of places, and many of the weaker immortal sect disciples can't even make it into the top 21. The first place is almost certainly in the hands of these gods. Tomorrow, Longmen will have a life and death battle with the Holy Medicine sect. I'm really looking forward to it. As the sun slowly set, the surrounding disciples of the immortal sect whispered to each other. 21 spots were almost certain. In one day's battle, 3 disciples of the immortal sect died in the battle, which could be said to be very intense. Some immortal sects were also full of gunpowder. The battle was very fierce. However, what everyone was looking forward to the most was the life and death battle between the Dragon Gate and the Holy Medicine Holy Doctor Immortal sect tomorrow. 21 spots have been created. The final battle will be held in the next 2 days. Today's competition is over. If you have nothing to do, you can go sightseeing in our Xianyuan city. It will still be the same time tomorrow. The Grand Elder of the Xianyuan clan slowly stood up and faced everyone. Let's go. The immortal gods stood up and flew directly toward their respective peaks, while the other disciples followed closely behind. Disciples of the Dragon Gate, don't be a coward. Haha, in the battle tomorrow, I, Hua Gujiang, will lead the disciples of the two great immortal sects and kill all of you. At this moment, the disciples of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect laughed loudly and flew away with ease behind the immortal god. HMPH, you'll be crying tomorrow. Xiao Yu couldn't help but shout loudly. This is going to be interesting. The Holy Medicine Immortal Sect is at a complete advantage now. I reckon that the Dragon Gate is going to be in danger tomorrow. The Holy Medicine Sect's Hua Gujiang has personally spoken. Among the young disciples, Hua Gujiang can be ranked in the top 5. On the other hand, the Dragon Gate doesn't have a single one. The winner will be decided immediately. When the surrounding disciples saw this scene, they whispered among themselves. Hua Gujiang? HMPH, he's really courting death. Xiao Yu alone can wipe out all the elite disciples of their two great immortal sects. At the Yellow Heaven Immortal Sect's position, Feng Lingtian saw this scene and said disdainfully. Ling Xiao, who was at the side, nodded slowly and then frowned. Between disciples, a single little feather can crush all the disciples of the Holy Medicine, and Immortal Sect, but the Dragon Gate is still much weaker in terms of combat power at the Immortal God level. There might be huge trouble in the future. Chapter 778 Conflict. The first day of the Prodigy Tournament ended, and this tournament caused a huge commotion in the pugilistic world. The pugilistic world website specially opened up a section for this tournament to be discussed by everyone. And after the first day ended, the entire discussion section was in an uproar. Especially now that the number of pugilistic world martial artists had reached over 100 million, hundreds of posts were being sent out every second. The disputes between the several great immortal sects were also going on here. The immortal sects that didn't have a good relationship with each other were attacking each other. The disciples who entered the top 21 today naturally received the attention of countless martial artists. But what made everyone pay the most attention and shock today was the agreement between the Dragon King of the Dragon Gate and the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect, which caused countless people to talk about it. However, because the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect's disciples and family members numbered in the tens of millions, and the Dragon Gate didn't have anyone to support them, the forum of the world of martial arts was full of abuse and contempt for the Dragon Gate. A small Dragon Gate dares to oppose our Holy Medicine Immortal Sect? It's simply courting death. Tomorrow, under the leadership of Senior Brother Hua Gujiang, I'll let you know the consequences of provoking us. A small Dragon Gate Dragon King has only been established for a few years. He doesn't have the slightest foundation. So what if he has a few immortals? Whether it's the number of disciples or the number of immortals, we're completely destroyed. If the immortals could make a move, they would have destroyed this trash Dragon Gate long ago. Haha, the brothers who support the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect. This Dragon King is very arrogant. He thinks that he has become an immortal god at such a young age, but he doesn't put his seniors in his eyes. He is arrogant and has a death wish. A small force in the Jianghu dares to go against our orthodox immortal sect. He is simply courting death. It is said that this Dragon Gate doesn't even have ordinary disciples. Hee hee. Many people mock the Dragon Gate. Even the immortal god-level Dragon King dared to speak arrogantly on the Jianghu internet. After all, they had no scruples even though they were separated by the internet. Besides the people of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect, the disciples of the other immortal sects didn't think highly of the Dragon Gate. After all, the strength of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sects could be considered as the top among the 20 immortal sections. How could the Dragon Gate contend with them? The disciples of the immortal sects didn't think highly of the Dragon Gate when it came to the life and death battle between the disciples of the Dragon Gate and the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect tomorrow. Some people even shouted that they would post pictures of the disciples of the Dragon Sect being killed tomorrow, attracting the support of many people. Xiao Yu, beautiful lady! Wan Xian, Xiao Yu, Xu Qing, and the rest had just returned to the mountain peak when they heard Feng Lingtian's voice from outside. "What are you doing?" Xiao Yu heard the voice and walked out of the room with a smile on her face. She looked at Feng Lingtian and shouted loudly, "Let's go out and have some fun. Let's go to Xianyuan City. Since we're already here, we should at least have some fun." Feng Lingtian looked up at Xiao Yu and said with a smile, "Wait." Xiao Yu shouted and returned to her room. "Brothers, sisters-in-law, do you want to go to Xianyuan City to have some fun? How can we be third wheel when there's a handsome guy who wants to date a beauty like Xiao Yu alone?" Lan Qingwei looked at her with a big smile on her face and said with a smile, "How is that possible? He's so weak. I can fight 10 of him alone." Xiao Yu pouted. "Let's go, sisters-in-law. Let's go out and have some fun. Xiao Xian, are you going?" A few girls were tempted and asked Wang Xian. "No, you guys go ahead. There are some things that I need to take care of." Wang Xian shook his head at them. "Brother, we'll go out then. I'll bring you some delicious food." Xiao Yu waved her hands at him and walked out happily. Wang Xian smiled and nodded. "Go." After the group of girls left, Wang Xian sat on a chair in the middle while Ao Jian stood at the side expressionlessly. Use the galactic stone to contact Prime Minister Gui. Ask him to bring 5 members of the Golden Swordfish clan over tomorrow. The 5 of them must be at the half-step immortal realm. Use some resources to nurture them. Also, send another 15 people at the infant realm. Wang Xian knocked on the table slowly. Also, send 30 people from the strange demon clan over. It's the Dragon King. Ao Jian nodded respectfully. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly. Holy medicine, holy doctor sect, it's best not to provoke me. Otherwise. His eyes sparkled. Otherwise, so what if there was an agreement between the immortals and gods? When one's strength reached a certain level, one could completely ignore the rules. Following that, Wang Xian called Mo Qinglong over and asked about the shop. While Wang Xian was dealing with the matter, Xiao Yu and the girls were strolling around the city of Xianyuan City with Feng Lingtian. Xianyuan City was the city of the 2 immortal sects, the Xianyuan clan and the Yuan clan. It could be considered as the largest ancient city at the moment. There were over 10 million people living in the city. The streets were abnormally bustling with people. That's Feng Lingtian from the Yellow Heaven Immortal Sect, the son of the sect leader of the Yellow Heaven Immortal Sect. He's a seated contestant. I heard that he's extremely powerful and is known as the freakish crown prince by the people from the Yellow Cauldron. That's true. According to the comments on the Jianghu website, Feng Lingtian is at least at the peak of the infant realm, and can be ranked at the top in this competition. Who are the beauties beside him? They're so beautiful. Walking on the streets of Xianyuan City, some of the martial artists in the city saw Feng Lingtian and whispered to him. The heavens chosen disciples of the 20 immortal sects could be said to be celebrities in the Jianghu. The Jianghu website had detailed information about them and their appearances. Hearing the discussions of the people around him, Feng Lingtian instinctively raised his chest with a hint of arrogance on his face. It was the first time Guan Shuqing, Lan Qingwei and the other 3 appeared in public, so no one knew who they were. What are you pretending to be arrogant for, little slave? Seeing his expression, Xiao Yu stared at him mockingly. Hee. Feng Lingtian's face immediately fell. I am now at least the heavens chosen among all the disciples of the immortal sections. Of course, I cannot be with Xiao Yu, the great beauty. If you participate, what does it have to do with us? Oh right, are you going on stage tomorrow? Feng Lingtian looked at her curiously. No need. My brother will take care of it. Didn't you say that you've read the strategy of Xianyuan City? Hurry up and bring us to eat good food. Xiao Yu urged. Okay. Come with me. I know the most popular restaurant in Xianyuan City. I don't know if there are still seats available. Let's hurry over. As Feng Lingtian spoke, he looked at the 5 beauties beside Xiao Yu and could not help but say, Xiao Yu, your brother really enjoys the blessings of all. Of course, my sister-in-law is very beautiful. But don't think about it. You are the life of a servant. Xiao Yu smiled as if it was a matter of course and raised his head slightly. Behind him, a few girls looked around with smiles on their faces. It was Tang Xian and Elder Fan who felt a little unnatural when they heard their conversation. Over there, the God of Cooking restaurant, the hottest restaurant in Xianyuan City. The food there is one of the best in the world. Chapter 779, Under the Conflict of. The God of Cooking restaurant was the best and most famous restaurant in Xianyuan City. The restaurant used powerful beasts and all kinds of spiritual herbs as ingredients. Ever since it appeared in the world, its reputation had spread far and wide. "Boss, do you still have any seats here?" After entering the God of Cooking restaurant, Feng Lingtian shouted at the waiter inside. "What a coincidence, young master! There are still a few tables upstairs. Please come in." The waiter in gray warmly welcomed them and led them upstairs. The food here smells so good." Xiao Yu sniffed the fragrance around him and said in surprise. The eyes of the other girls also lit up. Beauties loved delicious food the most, especially since they would not gain weight no matter how much they ate. "Go objectively. Please come in." The waiter in gray shouted and pointed at a square table inside. The table wasn't small, enough for everyone to sit down. "Sisters-in-law, this way please." Feng Lingtian extended his hand with a warm smile on his face. To him, the girls in front of him were real masters. One of them was the sister of the Dragon King, and she tortured him to death. The others were also the Dragon King's women, so they had to be respectful. "Good boy." Xiao Yu smiled and walked inside with a smile on his face. "This Dragon King of the Dragon Gate is really insolent. He dares to challenge our holy medicine immortal sect. He really brought this upon himself. Fairy Hua, an immortal cannot lose face. Otherwise the whole world will laugh at him. This Dragon Gate doesn't have any disciples at all. I think it will only add to the laughter when I go on stage tomorrow. I alone can crush all the young disciples of the Dragon Gate. Of course. With your strength, young Master Yu, I think you will be able to get into the top 10. Haha, although I am not as strong as my brother and a little weaker than Hua Gujiang, I am still very confident in getting into the top 10. Xian naturally believes in young Master Yu's strength." Just as they walked over, they suddenly heard a voice from the side. Instantly, everyone frowned and looked to the side. A group of 6 people, 3 young men and 3 women. 2 of them, Xiao Yu and the others recognized them at a glance. The second most outstanding disciple of the Yuan clan, Yuan Wei, and Fairy Hua of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect. HMPH, how arrogant! One person crushing a young disciple of the Dragon Gate? Those words are really exaggerated. The battle hasn't even started yet, and you guys are already bragging here. How arrogant! Before Xiao Yu and the rest could say anything, Feng Lingtian, who was sitting at the side, said in disdain. Huh! The 6 people who were chatting at the side immediately frowned and looked at Feng Lingtian and the rest. As their gazes swept over, Yuan Wei and Fairy Hua raised their brows. So it's Feng Lingtian from the Yellow Heaven Immortal Sect. Watch your words and don't cause trouble for your father. The corners of Yuan Yu's mouth curled up slightly as she stared at Feng Lingtian and said disdainfully. An immortal sect that only had one middle-level immortal was not in the Yuan clan's eyes. His father was also a middle-level immortal. When Feng Lingtian heard his words, his face turned dark and gloomy. Be careful with your words? I think you should be careful with your words. Pleasing beautiful women isn't like this. Xiao Yu took a step forward and looked at Yuan Wei coldly. Little girl, this is not trying to please, but telling a fact. Fairy Hua slowly stood up and stared at Xiao Yu coldly. We are just telling a fact. You guys who only know how to brag here, your holy medicine, holy doctor immortal sect will know what embarrassment is tomorrow. Xiao Yu snorted coldly and said with slight disdain. Embarrassment? Based on your tiny dragon gate? Fairy Hua raised her head slightly and stared at Xiao Yu. Tiny dragon gate, then should we give it a try? Xiao Yu revealed a trace of a cold smile and stared at her without showing any weakness. Fight? Based on you? Fairy Hua's gaze turned cold. Little girl, you'd better scram home. Haha, interesting. I heard that the top 5 on the Peerless Beauty list all have the strength of the infant realm. I'll let you see the strength of our dragon gate with one hand. Xiao Yu's arm moved, and a bone whip appeared in his hand. His eyes revealed a mocking expression. Don't let me think that you're just a vixen who knows how to seduce men. You're sharp-tongued. I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your parents. Fairy Hua's expression was a little awkward when she heard Xiao Yu's words. The emerald green bracelet on her wrist moved, and a vine also appeared in her hand. Haha, I'll let you attack first. Otherwise, you won't have a chance to attack. Xiao Yu laughed loudly and said mockingly, You're looking for a beating. See if I won't break your mouth. A trace of murderous intent appeared in Fairy Hua's eyes. She waved her arm, and the vine in her hand directly attacked Xiao Yu. Eh? What's going on? They're actually fighting. That's Fairy Hua. Who's the other girl? She's from the Dragon Gate. That's one of the immortals from the Dragon Gate. Yuan Yu from the Yuan clan is also here. On the second floor of the God of Cooking restaurant, there were also some disciples from other immortal sects who came here to eat. When they saw the 2 girls who suddenly attacked, they were shocked. When Feng Lingtian saw Little Feather attack, he took a step back. When Yuan Yu saw Fairy Hua attack, she also looked at her coldly. Fairy Hua had the strength of the infant realm. How could an unknown little girl deal with her? When the waiter in gray saw this scene, he wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and did not dare to persuade her. This heaven's favorite from the Yuan clan did not stop her. Even his boss did not dare to stop her. Pa! Fairy Hua's cane swung over. A trace of disdain appeared in Xiao Yu's eyes. He waved the cane in his hand lightly and directly welcomed it. Pa! The 2 long whips collided. However, in an instant, the bone whip suddenly grew longer and directly hit Fairy Hua's face. A heavy sound rang out. In an instant, a long bloody scar appeared on her fair and delicate face. Fairy Hua was instantly stunned. She felt the pain and blood on her face, and her expression changed drastically. Ah, you're courting death. Her expression became a little twisted, and her aura shook violently. The dense wood attribute on her body caused thorns to appear on the wooden floor. Pa! However, at this moment, the bone whip in Little Feather's hand swung out once again. Fairy Hua's expression changed drastically, and a wooden shield instantly appeared in front of her. However, the wooden shield was directly broken, and the bone whip once again landed on her beautiful face. This time, Xiao Yu did not stop. The bone whip in his hand grew longer and directly wrapped around her entire body. Bang! She pulled heavily, and Fairy Hua instantly fell in front of her. High and mighty Fairy Hua! How about this little girl from a small dragon sect? Xiao Yu stared at the Fairy Hua lying in front of her mockingly and asked with a smile. I'll kill you! Chapter 780. Fearlessly charged forward. I'm going to kill you! A sharp voice came from Fairy Hua's mouth on the second floor of the God of Cooking Tower. Her face was full of blood marks. Her body was tied up by the bone whip, and she was lying on the ground in an unusual sorry state. She was the dignified Fairy Hua, the 4th most beautiful woman in the world. She was the goddess in the hearts of thousands of martial artists. Now, she was lying in front of a little girl. If the martial artists in the pugilistic world knew about this, she, Fairy Hua, would become a laughing stock. Today, she would become the biggest stain in her life. No, when she saw a martial artist take out his cell phone to take a photo, this matter would definitely be spread out. This made her heart surge with endless killing intent. Kill me? With just you? Xiao Yu stared at Fairy Hua coldly, the bone whip in her hand pointed at her. This? The surrounding disciples of the immortal sect looked at this scene in astonishment. Fairy Hua had mocked the Dragon Gate, but in the end, she was easily defeated by a girl from the Dragon Gate. Moreover, at this moment, she was lying on the ground, her hair disheveled, and her face was full of bloody scars. The ferocious-looking fairy Hua was not as beautiful and noble as she usually was. She was like a fairy. "You're courting death! Stop!" Yuan Yu, who was standing at the side, moved her arm and an earthy yellow spear appeared in her hand. She pointed it at little Yu with a cold face. "Yuan Yu, this is the grudge between our Dragon Gate and the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect. Do you want to make a move?" Guan Shuqing and the other girls saw Yuan Yu taking out her weapon and asked coldly. "I don't give a damn about your Dragon Gate. Stop right now!" Yuan Yu shouted at them. In an instant, everyone's expression changed. "You can represent your Yuan clan." Little Yu's expression also turned cold as he asked Yuan Yu coldly. "I told you to stop. Little girl, whether I can represent or not, I will teach you a good lesson today." Yuan Yu's expression was dark and cold. The long spear in her hand carried a murderous aura as it stabbed towards Little Feather. "All right, then I don't care whether you can represent me or not." Little Feather's expression did not change. The bone whip in his hand instantly split into more than 10 poisonous snakes that instantly shot towards Yuan Yu. "Humph!" Yuan Yu's face was ice cold as she shook her arm. Earth spikes instantly appeared on the earthen yellow long spear and stabbed towards Little Feather. Boom! Xiao Yu swung his bone whip and the earthen spear collapsed. "What?" Yuan Yu's face changed and a look of shock appeared in her eyes. "You said that you could crush all the young disciples of our Dragon Gate by yourself. Initially, I didn't want to argue with you because you are from the Yuan clan. Did you really think that our Dragon Gate is afraid of you?" Xiao Yu's face was cold. Just now, Yuan Yu had arrogantly said that she alone could suppress all the disciples of the Dragon Gate. Now, she actually dared to arrogantly say that she didn't care about the Dragon Gate. This made Xiao Yu slightly angry. A fellow who hadn't even reached the half-step immortal god realm still dared to be so arrogant. Pung pung pung! The bone whip in Xiao Yu's hand was like a bone dragon's tentacle, directly attacking towards Yuan Yu. Yuan Yu's expression instantly changed. The long spear in her arm shook and an indestructible earth wall appeared. Crack, crack! However, the difference in strength was too big after all. The bone whip directly pierced through and heavily swung towards Yuan Yu's face. Bang! The powerful force caused the handsome Yuan Yu to instantly fly towards the window. Little Feather did not stop and swung the bone whip once again. Yuan Yu's face was filled with shock. A shield that emitted light and traces of an array instantly appeared on the necklace on her chest. Little Feather's bone whip landed on the shield, causing it to not move at all. She frowned and the bone whip in her hand merged into one as she heavily attacked the shield. It did not move at all. Under the terrifying defense, it still did not move at all. This should be the Yuan clan's defensive array. A defensive array that can withstand an immortal god's attack is very precious. Guan Shuqing looked at the indestructible shield and said to Xiao Yu. So it's a turtle shell made by an immortal god. Trash. Now, it's still hiding in this turtle shell and not daring to come out. Xiao Yu looked at Yuan Yu with disdain and said, "Someone like you? You still have the face to say that you can crush all the disciples of our Dragon Gate. You're quite good at bragging. Hee, a heaven's pride?" Yuan Yu's body trembled violently, and his expression was extremely unsightly. Looking at the surrounding disciples of the Immortal Gate looking at him, he had no place to be ashamed. He never would have thought that such a young girl would be able to defeat him so easily. After all, he had the strength of the peak of the infant realm. Looking at Yuan Yu's disdainful expression, he clenched his teeth tightly. He was defeated by a girl, and would end up like Fairy Hua, becoming a laughing stock. A heaven's pride that only knew how to boast. This caused his eyes to be filled with bloodshot, and he wished for nothing more than to cut Little Feather into 1,000 pieces. Just you wait, I won't let you off. Yuan Yu's eyes revealed a crazed killing intent, and she stared at Little Feather with bloodthirsty eyes. Wait. You dare to say such vicious words just because you're hiding in a turtle shell? I thought the Yuan clan was so strong, but I didn't expect the Yuan clan to have such a useless existence. Little Yu stared at Yuan Yu without the slightest bit of fear. You! When Yu heard this, she almost vomited blood. He had just said that he could crush everyone in the Dragon Gate, but in the end, he was instantly slapped in the face by a girl from the Dragon Gate. This made him feel his entire body burn. If he continued to argue with this girl, then Yu, would lose even more face. Yu will remember what happened today. Very soon, I will make you pay a heavy price for what happened today. Yu's blood-red eyes stared at little Yu. With an embarrassed expression, she walked to Fairy Hua's side and helped her up. Just you wait. Tomorrow will be your doomsday. Fairy Hua was so angry that she almost went mad. Her chest kept rising and falling as she shouted at little Yu. Then we'll see tomorrow. Little Yu raised his head slightly and looked coldly at Fairy Hua and Yu who were in a sorry state. Go! The two of them walked out gloomily. The 4 men and women who were at a loss hurriedly followed them. What a killjoy! Little Yu watched them leave and said impatiently, Xiao Yu, you beat up the current prodigy of the Yuan clan. Will the Yuan clan? Do you want to tell your brother? Feng Lingtian frowned and said worriedly, Don't worry. This is already giving the Yuan clan face. Guan Shuqing said with a twinkle in her eyes. That's right. If the Yuan clan doesn't discipline their own disciples, then we will help them discipline them. Lan Qinghua echoed from the side. Just now, Yu had slandered the Dragon Gate. If it wasn't for little Yu, they would have taken action. As for the price, that would depend on how the Yuan clan would react. Even if it was a reaction, they would be able to accept it. Bring it back and eat it. Guan Shuqing hesitated for a moment and said. A few girls nodded in agreement. Around them, a group of Immortal Sect disciples looked on in astonishment. Things seemed to be getting bigger. Chapter 781 was fearless. A girl from the Dragon Gate defeated Fairy Hua and Yu in the God of Cooking restaurant. Fairy Hua was humiliated and Yu was defeated. The one who made the move was a girl from the Dragon Gate. The pathetic beauty Fairy Hua and the heaven's favorite Yu were easily defeated by a girl from the Dragon Gate. Fairy Hua and Yu claimed that the disciples of the Dragon Gate were trash. In the end, they were severely humiliated by a girl from the Dragon Gate. A girl from the Dragon Gate humiliated Yu. Could it be that the Dragon Gate is going to make an enemy out of the Yuan clan? The Dragon Gate has brought this upon themselves. First, they made an enemy out of the holy medicine holy doctor, and now they are provoking the Yuan clan. On the first day of the grand competition, while the Jianghu was still discussing the matter of the Dragon Gate making an enemy out of the holy medicine immortal sect, another explosive news suddenly appeared on the internet. On the Jianghu internet, not only were there posts, there were also several pictures of Fairy Hua and Yu in a sorry state. Especially Fairy Hua. Her face was covered in blood and she was lying on the ground, not having the grace of a fairy at all. Looking at the pictures and the posts, everyone had shocked expressions on their faces. This Fairy Hua was too miserable and Yu was also in a sorry state. However, seeing the miserable state of the two, many people were shocked. A girl from the Dragon Gate could easily defeat Fairy Hua and Yu. Fairy Hua was in the infant realm and might not be very strong among the infant realm. But Yu was a heaven's favorite who entered the finals today. And with his strength, he was basically on the 21st heaven's favorite list. In the end, he was actually defeated by an unknown girl from the Dragon Gate. Moreover, she didn't even have the strength to resist. This caused everyone to be extremely shocked. This face smacking is too miserable. In the God of Cooking restaurant, they said that the Dragon Gate was inferior to them. Yu even said that she alone could crush all the young disciples of the Dragon Gate. In the end, she was instantly smacked in the face. Fairy Hua was in a sorry state. Yu was smacked in the face like this. Will the Yuan clan react? Will they become enemies with the Dragon Gate? That girl is the sister of the Dragon King. Her strength is very terrifying. She is at least at the half-step immortal god level. Following that, 3 replies that were more popular were pushed up. The miserable Fairy Hua and Yu. Will the Yuan clan stand up for Yu? the younger sister of the Dragon King. This incident made the Heaven's Pride competition even more interesting. And the battle tomorrow was even more exciting. Brother, that pair of bastards you and Fairy Hua are really annoying. On the guest reception peak of the Xianyuan clan, Wang Xian and Xiao Yu were sitting in front of a table. Xiao Yu said to him angrily. You and what? Wang Xian smiled. If they don't offend me, we won't offend them. If they offend us, don't hold back. They still dare to spout such arrogant words. I alone can teach them a lesson. If the people from the Yuan clan dare to cause trouble, I will teach them a good lesson in the Heaven's Pride competition tomorrow. Xiao Yu pouted and said unhappily. There's no need for you to do anything. The Golden Swordfish clan will be here tomorrow. Let's eat. All of you can enjoy yourselves here. Wang Xian smiled. He wasn't too concerned about the matter with Yuan Yu. Night fell very quickly. The Jianghu internet was still bustling with activity as they discussed what happened today. When the bell rang the next day, one by one, the immortal sects flew towards the arena. Wang Xian, Guan Shuqing, and the rest of the members of the Dragon Gate also flew towards the spectator stand. When they arrived, they instantly felt the gazes of the crowd. The group of immortal sect disciples stared at the members of the Dragon Gate with curiosity, as they swept their gaze over Xiao Yu. The fact that Xiao Yu defeated Yuan Wei yesterday shocked many people. Many people guessed that the person who went up to the arena to duel with the Holy Medicine Holy Doctor Immortal Sect was most likely the girl from yesterday. Because it seemed that only that girl in the Dragon Gate had the strength to do so. Brother, it's that girl, it's her. At this moment, in front of the Yuan clan's platform, Yuan Yu's face was filled with anger as she looked at little Yu in the distance. She gritted her teeth and said, You can't even defeat a girl. You were forced to use up the defensive array that father spent a lot of money to build for us. You're really embarrassing. Beside Yuan Yu, a thin youth coldly glanced at his younger brother. She's very strong, Yuan Yu lowered her head with an embarrassed expression, her clenched fists filled with fury. All right, since she dared to hurt you, I'll naturally teach her a good lesson. Don't say that you're my younger brother, but if you dare not give face to my Yuan clan, I'll let everyone know the consequences. As the thin and weak youth spoke, a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. Their words were not concealed at all, and the few immortal gods from the Yuan clan heard them. Especially a middle-aged immortal god. He glanced at them indifferently, and did not say anything, with a smile on his face. Regarding the fact that the second most outstanding disciple of the immortal sect was defeated by the girl from the Dragon Gate last night, they were not the least bit affected. They would not order their disciples to make a move, nor would they stop them from doing so. Everything would be settled by the disciples of the immortal sect themselves. However, they were very supportive of the disciples of the immortal sect taking revenge. As the top existence of the 20 immortal sects, the disciples of the immortal sect should have been able to get back at them for humiliating them. No matter who the other party was, this was the dominance of their Yuan clan. The Holy Medicine Immortal Sect was not afraid of the Dragon Gate, and they were even more fearless. One by one, the immortal sects arrived, and the 22 platforms filled with itinerant cultivators. The immortal gods of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect and the sect masters of the two immortal sects slowly stood up and looked coldly in the direction of the Dragon Gate. Holy Medicine Immortal Sect, disciples of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect, step forward. It's the sect master! In an instant, 10 youths of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect stood in front. Hua Gujiang was in the center. The 10 elite disciples of the two great immortal sects had the lowest strength of the infant realm. They raised their heads and looked in the direction of the Dragon Gate. Their eyes were filled with provocation and fighting spirit. Disciples of the Dragon Gate, come out and fight. Today, our Holy Medicine Immortal Sect will kill all the elite disciples of your Dragon Gate. Come out and die! Hua Gujiang waved his arm and a 2-meter-long dark green staff appeared in his hand. He pointed it directly in the direction of the Dragon Gate. It was extremely domineering. 2 minutes! Ao Jian sat beside Wang Xian. He looked into the distance and said faintly, Then, before that, let me do it first. Just as Wang Xian finished his words, a thin voice flew down from the Yuan clan's platform. He landed on the stage in the middle. The ground was slightly distorted under the control of the earth elemental energy. He turned his head and stared at Xiaoyu coldly. There was no expression on his face. How dare you insult my younger brother? You don't put the Yuan clan in your eyes. Come down. I want you to kneel down and apologize. Otherwise, you will die. Chapter 782, One Sword, Two Swords, Extermination. Domineering. Whether it was the disciples of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect, or the Yuan clan's Yuan Hua, everyone stared in the direction of the Dragon Gate with a domineering air. Their eyes were filled with ice-cold battle intent. In particular, Yuan Hua's appearance shocked everyone. I didn't expect that. I really didn't expect that Yuan Hua would actually stand up for his younger brother. His younger brother was humiliated last night, and now he has become a laughingstock in the Jianghu. He is known as the arrogant heaven's favorite, and even the Yuan clan has been ridiculed. Yuan Hua naturally wants to get back at them. However, you see, the immortal gods of the Yuan clan didn't stop him, because the Yuan clan doesn't think that a Dragon Gate can contend with them. A weak immortal gate provoking a powerful immortal gate, the consequences are obvious. Now, the Dragon Gate is going to be attacked from behind. Now that the Yuan clan wants to get back at them, the Dragon Gate will definitely be embarrassed in front of all the immortal sects. All the disciples of the immortal sects looked at this scene in shock. Humph! Xiaoyu looked embarrassed when she saw Yuan Hua pointing at her. She immediately stood up and glared at Yuan Hua angrily. Xiaoyu, sit down! Wang Xian's eyes were filled with killing intent. He looked at the group of Dragon Palace members who were flying over with a cold expression. Get down! When Yuan Hua saw Xiaoyu sitting down again, he narrowed his eyes slightly and said coldly. Everyone held their breaths and looked at her in shock. Yuan Hua was qualified to fight for the first place in this competition. That girl, the sister of the Dragon King, was not a match for Yuan Hua. They wanted to see how the Dragon King would react. Would he admit defeat and apologize? The entire arena watched this scene in silence. Dragon King! Dragon King! However, at this moment, a steady voice came from afar. The voice resounded throughout the entire arena. Wang Xian stood up slowly and looked at the Holy Doctor, Holy Medicine, and Immortal Sect. He shouted in a deep voice. Get in the arena! It's the Dragon King! A cold and metallic voice rang out. 20 figures flew directly toward the stage. All the disciples of the Immortal Sect were stunned, including all the immortal gods of the Immortal Sect. Some of the immortal gods of the Immortal Sect even stood up abruptly and looked at the sky with solemn faces. In the sky, 20 young men with cold faces and golden long swords in their hands flew toward the stage. There were 2 other people standing there. No, it should be said that there was a strange old man with a turtle shell on his back and a monkey-like demonic monkey. The 2 of them stood in the air as a terrifying energy churned within their bodies. Black demonic chi that seemed to have substance. Earth energy that was as thick as the earth. 2 immortal gods. These were 2 immortal gods. Everyone was shocked, and the disciples of the Immortal Sect revealed expressions of shock. The strength of these 2 immortals was definitely not something that an ordinary lower-level immortal could compare to. They wondered if they had reached the level of a middle-level immortal. Wang Xian waved his hand. Prime Minister Gui and Ao Qitian moved and left immediately. His gaze swept across the area below him. He looked at the group of 20 golden swordfish people on the arena and turned to look at Yuan Hua. After the disciples of the Dragon Sect have killed the disciples of the Holy Medicine and Holy Medicine Sect, I will come and kill you! Wang Xian said expressionlessly. He looked in the direction of the Holy Doctor and Holy Medicine Immortal Sect and said, There are 20 disciples of the Dragon Gate. If you don't have enough people, I can withdraw some of them. If you have enough people, then let's begin. A life and death battle will not end until one of you is dead. Hiss! Upon hearing Wang Xian's voice, all the disciples of the Immortal Sect around sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were sparkling as they looked at the 20 young men standing in the arena with swords in their hands. First, they killed the disciples of the Holy Medicine sect. Then, they killed Yuanhua. Just the Dragon King's words had shocked everyone. However, the scene where the 2 immortal gods brought 20 disciples was simply too shocking. 2 immortal gods. Apart from the 3 immortal gods on the surface, 2 more immortal gods appeared in the Dragon Gate. Furthermore, one of the immortal gods was a terrifying demon monkey. This was the strength of the Dragon Gate. Was this the so-called foundation of the Dragon Gate that had only been established for a few years? 5 immortals had already appeared, and at least 2 gods had appeared. Could it be that there were still other immortals who hadn't appeared? There were also those 20 youths who had directly appeared. Although their strength couldn't be seen, the ones that the Dragon King could bring out would definitely not be lower than the infant stage. Was this the foundation of the Dragon Gate? This was simply too terrifying. That devil monkey just now was very powerful. Even if he wasn't a mid-level immortal, he was still at the peak of the lower immortal realm. In the Beast Clan's seat, there was also a monkey that was over 2 meters tall. He spoke in human language and his eyes flickered as he spoke. The few immortal gods of the Beast Clan slowly nodded their heads. The few immortal gods of the Holy Medicine Holy Doctor Immortal sect slightly frowned. The few immortal gods exchanged glances and stared at the 20 youths below the arena. Then, they waved their hands at the 10 disciples in front of them. Humph, I didn't expect your dragon sect to have such capable disciples. This is what makes it interesting. Today, I shall kill you all! Hua Gujiang swept his gaze across the group of golden swordfish below. He snorted coldly and a strong aura erupted from his body. Follow me. Come, kill! He shouted softly and flew directly towards the stage. Withdraw the 10 disciples, Wan Xian said to the golden swordfish below. It's the Dragon King! The 10 nascent realm experts withdrew immediately. On the arena, Yuanhua stared at the golden swordfish with a cold expression. A hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Kill me. I'll wait. I hope you won't disappoint me when the time comes. He withdrew his long saber and flew towards the direction of the Yuan clan. Boom! After Yuanhua left, the 10 young disciples of the Holy Doctor Holy Medicine Immortal sect landed on the arena. In an instant, the entire arena was filled with a terrifying aura. The dazzling green light, the blazing firelight, and the bone-piercing golden light instantly clashed head-on. One at a time or together! Standing in the middle, a golden swordfish expressionlessly stared at the 10 disciples of the Holy Doctor Holy Medicine Immortal sect and coldly said, Interesting. I want to kill all of you as soon as possible. Hee, then let's kill all of you together. It'll be more fun this way. Hua Gujiang extended his arm and pointed his emerald green staff forward. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly and a confident expression appeared on his face. Boom! 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 Beside him, the disciples of the Holy Medicine Immortal sect raised their staffs at the same time. The fire staff and the wood staff, one red and one green. When the disciples of the Holy Medicine Immortal sect joined hands, they would be able to display even stronger combat strength. They even had combined combat techniques. The 10 of them coldly pointed at the golden swordfish and the others, their faces revealing a strong sense of confidence. The battle is about to begin! When the surrounding disciples of the immortal sect saw this scene, they felt a chill in their hearts. Their gazes were fixed on the arena below. Chapter 783, One Sword, Two Swords, Extermination. The life and death battle between the disciples of the Dragon Gate and the Holy Medicine Immortal sect. At the beginning, no one was optimistic about the Dragon Gate. However, 2 immortal gods suddenly appeared and led a group of young people over. This scene made many people feel that the Dragon Gate was not as weak as they had imagined. However, looking at the 20 heaven's chosen disciples who were competing with each other, most of the disciples of the Immortal sect were still optimistic about the Holy Medicine Immortal sect. After all, Hua Dujiang was a half-step immortal god monster. One half-step immortal god could deal with at least 10 infant realm experts. At present, only 4 heavens chosen of the immortal sects were half-step immortal gods. These were the most outstanding disciples who were nurtured by the immortal sects with their enormous resources. Only the top few immortal gods could nurture such heavens chosen and outstanding talents. Even if the Dragon Gate is defeated, with the Dragon Gate's foundation, it's enough to make most immortal sects fear it. Even the top few immortal sects fear it. Some immortal sect disciples thought to themselves, "Haha, go to hell, wood cremation." At this moment, Hua Dujiang waved his arm, and drops of green seeds fell to the ground. Thorns crazily burrowed out of the ground. The 5 fire element disciples tapped their scepters, and the thorns were instantly covered in flames. In an instant, the terrifying flaming thorns attacked the 10 golden swordfish. The battle was about to start. The terrifying attacks instantly covered the entire arena. In an instant, the arena was filled with the terrifying flaming thorns. The arena within a few kilometers was completely covered. One could imagine how terrifying the power was. The holy medicine immortal sect's attack instantly caused all the disciples of the immortal sect to reveal shocked expressions. Even Xian Yuanfeng of the Xian Yuan clan and Yuan Hua of the Yuan clan watched with solemn expressions. "One sword!" However, at this moment, an emotionless voice sounded from within the arena. "One sword!" The 10 golden swordfish let out a soft cry at the same time. With one sword, a resplendent golden sword light directly slashed forward. This was especially true for the attacks of the 5 golden swordfish in the center. Each sword was 1,000 meters long and dozens of meters wide. The aura of a half-step immortal god instantly exploded out. Boom! 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 A terrifying sword light swept out. There was nothing fancy about it, only one sword. What? The instant the sword light condensed, all the immortal gods of the holy medicine immortal sect quickly stood up, their faces revealing an embarrassed expression. A low roar resounded throughout the entire arena. What's going on? Seeing the immortal gods of the holy medicine immortal sect stand up with embarrassed expressions on their faces, all the disciples of the immortal sect revealed shocked expressions. 5 half-step immortal gods! An immortal god from the Xian Yuan clan said in a deep voice as his eyes sparkled. Boom! 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 Under everyone's astonished gazes, the sword light that could easily crush a dead branch met with the flaming thorns. The terrifying flaming thorns were like fireworks as they emitted a flash of light on the stage. Soon after, they were drowned by the terrifying sword radiance. It was so overwhelming that there was no way to block it at all. The flames and thorns disappeared at a terrifying speed. Block! Block! Hua Gujiang's shocked voice rang out on the stage. His eyes widened as a look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. The emerald scepter in his hand emitted a dazzling green light. This was an immortal god's weapon. It was specially given to him by the immortal gods for today's battle. The other 9 disciples of the immortal sect were greatly shocked. They looked at the terrifying sword light that was attacking them in terror. Buzz, buzz, buzz! One by one, the young geniuses placed the scepters in their hands in front of them. The fire shield and the wood shield instantly appeared in front of them. If you don't die with one strike, then one more strike! The cold voice sounded again, like a curse that could kill. The disciples of the Saint Medicine Immortal sect, who had just blocked the sword light, had a terrified look in their eyes. There were 5 half-step immortal gods, and the opponent had 5 half-step immortal gods. This was a fucking unequal combat power. The opponent only had 1 person and 1 sword, and they had already used all their strength to block. If one more strike came, everyone's eyes revealed a terrified expression. Even Hua Gujiang, who had arrogantly and domineeringly stared at the position of the Dragon Gate and demanded a battle, felt his heart tremble. His forehead was filled with cold sweat. I can't block it! I can't block it! A terrifying sword light once again formed. A young man from the Saint Medicine Immortal sect shouted out in fear with eyes filled with fear. The other 8 infant realm disciples also had despair on their faces. They had used up all of their strength just now. If they attacked again, they wouldn't be able to defend at all. Even the sword-light attack from the 5 infant realm young swordsmen made their hearts palpitate, not to mention the 5 half-step immortal gods. Run! A young heaven's favorite's eyes flashed with panic. Under the shocked gazes of all the disciples of the immortal sects, he turned around and ran out of the arena. "Fuck, run! This is too embarrassing! All the immortal sects are watching, and he's actually running away. If he doesn't run, he'll definitely die. This disciple of the Saint Medicine immortal sect has completely collapsed. The gap is too big. 5 half-step immortal gods. There are 5 of them. Even the powerful Xianyuan clan only managed to nurture 1 half-step immortal god, Xianyuan Fengyi, among the younger generation. Furthermore, Xianyuan Fengyi has a high chance of becoming an immortal god. How can the Dragon Gate be so powerful?" All the disciples of the Immortal Gate had shocked expressions on their faces. All screams of pain rang out in the arena. The disciple who had just escaped had just flown out of the arena's enchantment when he heard the sounds behind him. Immediately, his scalp went numb, and his eyes were filled with terror as he flew toward the Holy Medicine Immortal Gate with all his might. "Can you escape?" At this moment, a cold voice rang out. Terrifying sword rays pierced through the young man's chest, causing his eyes to widen as his corpse fell towards the ground. At this moment, traces of sword rays were left behind on the sturdy stage. At the edge of the stage, Hua Gujiang was half squatting on the ground. His emerald green staff was emitting a dazzling light as a green circle surrounded him. He was panting heavily, and his eyes were filled with fear. A dense energy entered his chest from the staff of the artifact of the immortal god. The defense of this green circle came from a treasure on his chest. As the most powerful disciple of the Holy Medicine sect and the disciple with the most terrifying talent, he had a life-saving method. Unless the immortal god made a move, he could not break the defense on his chest. As for the other disciples of the Holy Medicine immortal sect, they had already died under that terrifying sword light. There was only one sword. If one sword did not die, then there would be one more sword. 2 swords, just 2 swords. The domineering and confident Holy Medicine immortal sect only had 1 disciple who survived, while the other disciples were all killed. This result made everyone feel incredulous. Not only did the Holy Medicine immortal sect not win, they were all instantly killed. Chapter 784, Continued to Fight. Hiss! Seeing Hua Gujiang squatting on the ground, all the immortal sects were shocked. A complete defeat! A complete defeat! A complete crushing! My God, it's unbelievable! The entire arena was silent. Everyone had no idea what to say. Everyone stared at the arena with their mouths agape. The immortals and deities of the Holy Medicine immortal sect were slightly trembling. Their eyes were slightly red as they stared at the arena below. 9 young prodigies and 9 nascent realm cultivators. Although the deaths of 9 nascent realm cultivators couldn't hurt them at all, they were the most outstanding disciples of this generation. Especially on the arena. They were instantly killed by the Dragon Gate in front of everyone's eyes. To the 2 immortal sects of the Holy Medicine, this was simply a slap in the face. Clap, clap, clap! At this moment, on the arena, 10 golden swordfish slowly walked toward Hua Gujiang, who was surrounded by green energy. Their eyes were filled with cold killing intent. It's a battle of life and death. They are going to kill Hua Gujiang. The defense on Hua Gujiang's body can withstand the full force attack of an immortal god. It's very difficult to break through it. Hua Gujiang is the future immortal god that the 2 immortal sects, Holy Medicine and Holy Medicine, are most focused on nurturing. How can the 2 immortal sects just watch him be killed? The surrounding disciples of the Holy Medicine Sect looked at the group of golden swordfish that were walking over and started discussing softly. The group of immortal gods from the Holy Medicine Sect and the Holy Medicine Sect also looked at him with an awkward expression. Phew! The green-robed elder took a deep breath and looked at Wang Xian. We, the Holy Medicine Sect and the Holy Medicine Sect, admit defeat. We admit defeat. Even if we don't admit defeat, we have already lost. The Holy Medicine Sect and the Holy Medicine Sect are completely defeated. This is really out of everyone's expectations. When everyone around heard this, they muttered to themselves. How can we admit defeat in a life-and-death battle? Wang Xian stared at them with an expressionless face and said in a mocking tone. Dragon King, we will give up after killing 9 of our outstanding disciples. The competition is over. The green-robed elder said in a low voice with an embarrassed expression. There's still one more. It will be over soon. Wang Xian revealed a smile as he looked down calmly. Boom! 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 As if they were responding to Wang Xian, 10 golden swordfish raised the golden longswords in their hands and slashed at Hua Gujiang's rain shield. Dragon King, don't go too far. I'm warning you. A cold light shot out from the green-robed elder's eyes as he pointed at Wang Xian. Haha, since you dare to fight to the death, let's fight to the death. If you don't dare, why are you spouting nonsense? Is this the immortal sect that has been passed down for thousands of years? Today, so what if I, the dragon sect, killed the 2 disciples of your immortal sect? Wang Xian laughed out loud and stared at the green-robed elder with a cold expression. He did not show any signs of weakness. So what if he killed him? When he said this, everyone was shocked. Dragon King is indeed the Dragon King. If you dare to provoke him, you will have to pay a heavy price. All the immortal sect disciples and even the immortal gods stared at Wang Xian with flickering eyes. The Grand Elder and Sect Master of the Hun Yuan Immortal Sect had initially wanted to take revenge. Now that they saw how domineering Wang Xian was, their expressions kept changing. They were considering whether they should make an enemy out of this kind of person. Haha, good, good. Dragon King, very good. Today, our Holy Medicine Holy Doctor Celestial Sect will remember that we have a long future ahead of us. Just as you said, in the near future, there will only be one between us. The eyes of the green-robed elder were filled with frost. His cold killing intent was not concealed at all. Repeating what I said is very boring. Wang Xian stared at the green-robed elder without showing any signs of weakness. No, no! Hua Gujiang's terrified voice was heard from the arena below. Everyone quickly looked over. At this moment, the defense on Hua Gujiang's body was actually showing signs of cracking. Under the continuous attacks of 5 half-step immortal gods and 5 infant-stage powerhouses, the terrifying defensive power was actually slowly cracking. Hua Gujiang, who was on the arena, revealed a look of fear in his eyes. He might not feel fear after being killed in an instant, but now that he was slowly walking towards death, this was even more terrifying. The immortal gods of the Holy Medicine and Holy Medicine Sect looked over, their eyes extremely cold. I'll definitely make you pay back tenfold for today's matter, the sect leaders of the 2 great immortal sects said with a cold expression. Ah! A blood-curdling scream represented the end of the life and death battle between the Dragon Sect and the Holy Medicine and Holy Medicine Sect. 10 of the most outstanding disciples of the Holy Doctor and Holy Medicine Sect were killed. Hua Gujiang, who had a high chance of obtaining the first place in this competition, was killed. Everyone could hear the conversation between the 2 immortal sects and the Dragon King clearly. This made everyone have a premonition that the Dragon Sect and the 2 immortal sects would become enemies completely. It was to the extent that they were going to kill each other. This made all the disciples of the immortal sects feel the confidence and fearlessness of the Dragon King. So what if he challenged the 2 immortal sects? Leave one of the strongest ones behind! At this moment, Wang Xian's voice reverberated through the entire battleground once again. All the disciples and immortals of the Celestial Sect were slightly shocked. They looked at Wang Xian in astonishment. It's the Dragon King! On the stage, the 9 golden swordfish nodded their heads. Their bodies moved and they flew toward the stage of the Dragon Gate. "Please give us your instructions, Dragon King," the last golden swordfish asked Wang Xian respectfully. "Continue fight." Wang Xian looked in the direction of the Yuan clan expressionlessly and said indifferently, "Let's begin. Let's see if the Dragon Gate disciple dies or if you die." "It's the Dragon King!" The golden swordfish accepted the challenge. With a wave of its arm, it pointed in the direction of the Yuan clan. Its face was cold and emotionless. With a resounding voice it said, "Come and fight. You die or I die. You die or I die." The emotionless voice resounded throughout the entire battleground. The long sword of the Dragon Gate disciple pointed straight at the Yuan clan. Just like not long ago, the Yuan clan's Yuan Hua pointed his weapon straight at the Yuan clan and challenged them to a battle. However, this time, it was the Dragon Gate's side. Moreover, it was a battle that would not end until one of them died. A half-step immortal god inviting another half-step immortal god to a battle that would not end until one of them died. It had to be said that this was an extremely terrifying thing. No half-step immortal god dared to invite another half-step immortal god of the same level down the arena to fight to the death. No one wanted to die. But now, the half-step immortal god disciple of the Dragon Gate had directly invited Yuan Hua of the Yuan clan to fight. Everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. They didn't expect that after the disciple of the Dragon King killed the holy doctor and holy medicine disciple, he would really kill Yuan Hua again, as he said. Doing so would undoubtedly anger the Yuan clan. But the Dragon King was still the Dragon King, a strong enemy. So what? At this time, Yuan Hua, who was on the Yuan clan's stage, saw the golden swordfish pointing straight at him. Hearing his words, his face changed slightly and his pupils could not help but shrink. Not only Yuan Hua, but all the disciples of the Yuan clan, as well as the immortals and gods, also changed their faces. Chapter 785, Continue to Fight. Hiss, a fight to the death. A fight to the death? That disciple of the Dragon Gate wants to fight to the death? This? His cold face and emotionless voice. A fight to the death. This young swordsman is so terrifying. Now, does Yuan Hua dare to fight to the death with him? If Yuan Hua doesn't make a move, then the entire Yuan clan will lose a lot of face. Especially just now, Yuan Hua pointed at the Dragon King's sister and told him to get down, or else he would kneel down and apologize. All the disciples of the immortal sect looked at this scene in shock. They looked at the platform of the Yuan clan, waiting for their response. At this moment, Yuan Hua's face kept changing. He stared at the golden swordfish on the ring with a gloomy face. He really did not dare to engage in a life-and-death battle. Especially when he was facing an expert who was also at the peak of half-step immortal god realm. He did not dare to guarantee that he would win. And once he lost, what awaited him was death. As the most outstanding Heaven's Pride disciple of the Yuan clan, as the most dazzling young expert in the pugilistic world, he did not dare to gamble. He did not dare to use his own life to fight in an arena battle. "If you don't dare, kneel down and apologize." Xiao Yu saw the changing expression of Yuan Hua on the Yuan clan's platform and felt very relieved. He said with slight ridicule, "Kneel down and apologize." This was what Yuan Hua said to Xiao Yu towards the Dragon Gate not long ago. If he did not dare, then kneel down and apologize. But now, Xiao Yu returned this sentence to him. Yuan Hua almost vomited blood when he heard Xiao Yu's words. He stared at him with slightly red eyes and his body trembled slightly. The immortals and gods of the Yuan clan also looked extremely embarrassed. This doesn't give the Yuan clan a way out at all. He doesn't put the Yuan clan in his eyes at all. He is simply offending them to the death. The Dragon King really has no scruples. The group of disciples from the immortal sects exclaimed in their hearts as they watched. "Dragon King, let's spar normally." When the Grand Elder of the Yuan clan saw this scene, he looked at Yuan Hua and sighed in his heart. He said faintly, "Your Yuan clan's disciple was taught a lesson for speaking without restraint. Now another disciple has come to provoke us. Why are you cowardly now? If you don't have the strength, don't be so arrogant. Wan Xian looked at the supreme elder of the Yuan clan and said expressionlessly. Wan Xian's words made all the immortal sects of the Yuan clan turn pale instantly. An immortal who looked similar to Yuan Hua had a cold look in his eyes. He opened his mouth and was about to speak when the supreme elder waved his hand. Let's spar normally. If Yuan Hua loses, we will compensate him with a level 2 formation. How about that? The Grand Elder of the Yuan clan said to Wang Xian. Grade 2 formation? Wang Xian raised his eyebrows. Currently, the Dragon Palace needed 10 Grade 2 formations to upgrade to Grade 2. Grade 2 formations were very important to him. Moreover, the Yuan clan had already regressed. If they did not relent, they might completely offend the Yuan clan. Although Wang Xian was not afraid of the Yuan clan, there was no need to provoke such a strong enemy. Sure. Wang Xian nodded his head. Whoosh! I will definitely defeat you today. On the platform of the Yuan clan, Yuan Hua flew off the stage with an embarrassed expression. He stared at the golden swordfish with a cold expression. However, Yuan Hua's cold voice sounded extremely weak in the eyes of all the surrounding disciples of the immortal sect. Just now, others had invited him for a life-and-death battle, but he didn't agree. Now, he was just trying to hide his cowardice. Please enlighten me! The golden swordfish's ice-cold longsword pointed straight at Yuan Hua. Enlighten me! Facing the golden swordfish, he didn't dare to be careless. With a gloomy face, he moved his arm. A yellow shield appeared in his left hand, and a knight's sword appeared in his right hand. A shield and a sword were the most suitable for Earth Elemental cultivators. Earth Elemental cultivators were best at defense. Traceless sword! The long sword in the golden swordfish's hand instantly moved. The swordsmanship of the golden swordfish clan all came from Aojian, which could be said to be the same lineage as Aojian. The heartless sword principle focused on killing. The moment he attacked, an invisible long sword directly attacked Yuan Hua. Humph, I'll definitely defeat you today! Yuan Hua's eyes lit up. He raised the shield in his hand, and the traceless sword landed on the shield. The earthen yellow mist on the shield dispersed and blocked it. Earth-shattering! The earthen yellow knight's sword in his hand swung forward, and a crack instantly appeared on the entire arena as he attacked the golden swordfish. Traceless slash! The golden swordfish leaped into the air as terrifying metal swords were shot out. The terrifying sword radiance emitted a boundless radiance. The entire arena was instantly covered in gold. Slash! All the golden radiance condensed into tiny metal swords as they fell towards Yuan Hua. Sky high! Yuan Hua's expression changed slightly as he raised the knight's sword and shield in his hand. An khaki-colored defense appeared around him. Boom, boom, boom! The terrifying sword light directly pierced through the earthen yellow defense. When the continuous attacks landed on his defense, his expression changed drastically. Sigh! Heartless sword, although it's just a superficial attack, its attack power is also very terrifying. This child, among the same level, his attack power is unparalleled. On the Yuan clan's platform, the Grand Elder looked at the short exchange of blows on the stage and shook his head slightly. The other immortals and deities also had ugly expressions, especially one of the middle-aged immortals and deities. Our Yuan clan's defense is very strong, especially when combined with the formation. Although our attack power can't compare to the explosive attributes of fire, metal, and lightning, it's not bad either. It's a combination of offense and defense. However, faced with such a violent, merciless sword, little Hua is simply unable to win. An elderly immortal god's eyes flickered as he spoke. The supreme elder of the Yuan clan nodded in agreement. Ruthless sword. 1,000 years ago, the strongest sword immortal, the immortal slayer Taoist, used the power of the ruthless sword Tao to suppress the entire Jianghu. No one was able to receive his sword. From then on, the ruthless sword was the #1 killing sword. It was incomparably terrifying. However, to cultivate the ruthless sword, one needed to forget, sever, and be ruthless. Emotionless, 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 and merciless. This was a kind of realm, and it was not a clever attack. However, this realm was very terrifying. It would unleash the sharpest attacks, the deadliest attacks, and the most accurate attacks. In the past, after the immortal Slayer Taoist had forgotten his feelings, in order to pursue the Tao of the Sword, he had killed his family and almost destroyed the entire immortal sect. Since then, the immortal Slayer Tao had declined a lot. In just a few moves, the Yuan clan knew that their disciples were going to be defeated. Chapter 786. The first session of the Prodigy Tournament came to an end. Suppression. This suppression is a little obvious. This disciple of the Dragon Gate's attacks are so terrifying. The golden long swords are endless, and they can accurately strike in every direction. It's too terrifying. The young swordsman in the battle is like an ice-cold machine. His attacks are simply too sharp. When he was suppressing the Holy Doctor Holy Medicine Immortal Sect just now, he couldn't see anything. Now, he's simply too strong. Fortunately, Yuanhua didn't agree to the life and death battle just now. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had a chance to win at all. The group of Immortal Sect disciples looked at the battle on the arena below. This battle was somewhat out of many people's expectations. Yuanhua was originally a Heaven's Pride expert who was qualified to fight for the first place this time, but now, he was completely powerless against the young swordsman. He could only use his strong earth attribute defense to block the attacks time and time again. As disciples of the immortal sect with such a status, each of them also had their own trump cards. Yuanhua's trump card was a type of defense, an extremely terrifying defense. But under the attacks of the golden swordfish, there was no chance of winning. All the disciples of the immortal sect could see it, let alone the immortal gods. On the arena, Yuanhua's face was extremely pale. His arms trembled slightly from the repeated attacks. On the contrary, the golden swordfish standing in the air launched powerful attacks without any expression on its face. On the surrounding platforms, the heavens chosen of the immortal sects standing at the front watched the golden swordfish's attacks with extremely grave expressions. Even Xianyuan Fingy of the Xianyuan clan and a burly young man of the wild beast immortal sect watched with flickering eyes. Even if it was them, they didn't have absolute confidence in winning against this terrifying young swordsman. In fact, they might even lose. This caused the expressions of all the heaven's favorites from the immortal sects to turn ugly. Ka! At this moment, a crack appeared on Yuanhua's defense from below, causing his face to turn pale. You're not my match! The golden swordfish glanced at the cracked defense and didn't continue to attack. Its body moved and it directly flew towards the Dragon Gate platform. Hoo! Yuanhua panted heavily and his pale face slowly recovered. He did not say anything, nor did he say anything fierce. His body moved and he flew towards the Yuan clan's platform. He could feel that the gap between him and the young swordsman of Dragon Gate was very big. He was not a match for him. He was completely not a match for him. This was a complete suppression of his strength. The disciples of the Dragon Gate are truly outstanding talents. Our Yuan clan has admitted defeat. Level 2 formation, Mingqing formation. The supreme elder of the Yuan clan had no expression on his face. He waved his arm and 4 formation compasses flew towards Wang Xian. Thank you for letting me win. Wang Xian smiled faintly. His gaze swept across the formation compasses and a faint smile appeared on his face. Mingqing Array Compass. Level 2 Array Formation. Clear mind. This was a relatively unorthodox auxiliary array formation. Its effect was somewhat similar to the Dragon Field, which could enhance one's comprehension ability. However, in terms of effect, it was dozens of times weaker than the Dragon Field's ability. However, it was still a level 2 array formation. Wang Xian's face was full of smiles. He sat there and swept his gaze across all the immortal sections. He continued to speak indifferently. The disciples of the Dragon Sect are not participating in this prodigy tournament. Since the Dragon Gate is not participating, let's continue. The Grand Elder of the Xianyuan clan took a glance at Wang Xian and spoke to all the immortal sections. The competition continued. 41 Heaven's favorites were competing for 21 spots. However, the following competition made many disciples of the immortal sects feel that there was too much exaggeration in this Heaven's favorites competition. That was because the Dragon Gate was not participating. The powerful 5 young disciples of the Dragon Gate who were half-step immortal gods would definitely occupy 5 seats. And according to the young swordsmen of half-step immortal gods, the strength of those swordsmen of the infant realm would definitely not be weak. There were even many disciples who guessed that the strength of those young disciples of the infant realm should be able to reach the top 21. However, the Dragon King did not let the disciples of the Dragon Gate participate. The first Heaven's Pride competition was held for 3 days. When the last day was over, the Heaven's Pride ranking came out. First place, Xianyuan Fengyi. Second place, Shou Tian. Third place, Yuanhua. Fourth place, Wan Qingyun. The rankings came out one by one. The Xianyuan clan was first, the Mad Beast Immortal Sect disciples were second, the Yuan clan was third, and the True Martial Immortal Academy was fourth. As soon as this information was released, it immediately blew up the entire Jianghu. In the past 2 days, the matter of the prodigy competition had caused a huge sensation on the Jianghu internet. The 10 prodigies of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect had all been killed by the disciples of the Dragon Gate. Yuanhua had been defeated by the disciples of the Dragon Gate. These 2 pieces of news caused a sensation on the Jianghu internet the next day, and also shocked all the disciples of the Immortal Sect. When the news spread on the internet that the 2 terrifying immortal gods of the Dragon Gate had brought 20 young disciples, it shocked all the martial artists. This was especially true for the disciples and family members of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect, as well as those who supported the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect. On the 3rd day, after the prodigy tournament ended, the rankings were determined, and it shocked the entire Jianghu. The first prodigy tournament has ended. Looking at the rankings, I really have mixed feelings. If all the disciples of the Dragon Gate were to go on stage, I wonder what the situation would be like. This year's prodigy tournament is too exaggerated. Xianyuan Fengyi's swordsmanship is very strong, but if that young swordsman from the Dragon Gate goes up, I wonder who will win first place. No one would have thought that under the pressure of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect, the Dragon Gate would be able to bring out such a terrifying foundation. This time, the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect was too miserable. All the prodigy disciples were completely killed. There were 3 pitiful people in this Heaven's Chosen tournament. The Holy Medicine Immortal Sect, Yuan Yu, and Fairy Hua were all courting death. Now they've been taught a good lesson by the Dragon Gate. They deserve it. One by one, the topics were trending on the Jianghu internet. The performance of the Dragon Gate caused all the disciples of the Immortal Sect to be shocked. And the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect became the laughing stock of this year's Heaven's Chosen tournament. They became the target of ridicule. Initially, they were provoking others, but in the end, they were completely crushed. In this competition, the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect became the biggest loser. As for the Dragon Sect, their reputation soared. Powerful disciples, at least 5 immortals, and terrifying foundations. Even without the existence of ordinary disciples, the Dragon Sect's strength could rank around the 5th among all the immortal sections. However, on the Jianghu internet, many disciples of the Holy Medicine Immortal Sect clamored that they would make the Dragon Sect pay a heavy price. When everyone saw the comments made by the disciples of the 2 great immortal sects, they also became slightly solemn. The strength displayed by the Holy Medicine sects was much stronger than the strength displayed by the Dragon Gate. Moreover, in the disciple competition of the immortal sects, the sect leaders of the 2 great immortal sects had clearly stated that the Dragon Gate would wait. It was possible that the 2 great immortal sects would take revenge at any time. And after the disciple competition, there was another matter that attracted more attention in Jianghu. The Dragon Gate would hold an auction. Chapter 787, Dragon Gate Auction. Dragon Gate Auction. After the end of the grand competition, the Dragon King announced on the spot that an auction would be held. This was the first Dragon Gate auction. 3 days later, it would be held on a floating island in the Bohai Sea. The auction would be held for 1 day. At that time, the main items to be auctioned would be spirit weapons and elixirs. At that time, in this auction, 5 grade 13 spirit weapons, 3 sets of grade 12 spirit weapon sets, grade 7 elixirs, and grade 6 elixirs would be auctioned. Once this news was out, it once again caused the entire immortal sects to be in an uproar. 5 grade 13 spirit weapons, these were weapons used by immortals, and many immortals in the immortal sects didn't have grade 13 spirit weapons to use. The other 3 sets of grade 12 spirit weapon sets also caused many immortal sect disciples to go crazy. Spirit weapon sets. When an ordinary infant realm expert wore the spirit weapon set, they were completely capable of fighting against the Heaven's Favorites ranked on the Heaven's Favorites list. Not to mention those grade 7 medicinal pills and grade 6 medicinal pills. The rarity of grade 7 medicinal pills could shorten the cultivation time of an infant realm expert by a few years or even more than 10 years. Their rarity even surpassed that of a spirit tool. If one could consume grade 7 medicinal pills to increase the cultivation speed, there was a chance of stepping into the immortal god realm in the future. Spirit tools and medicinal pills were extremely precious to martial artists. Other than spirit tools and medicinal pills, there was also the earth starfish, an earth starfish that could increase one's lifespan. An earth starfish could be comparable to a level 6 medicinal pill, a treasure that could increase one's lifespan. At that time, the earth starfish would not be auctioned, but sold directly. It could be exchanged with level 6 medicinal pills and level 7 spiritual herbs. When the news of the Dragon Gate auction came out, the eyes of many immortal sect disciples lit up, filled with anticipation. Many disciples of the immortal sects rushed into Jiang City, waiting for the beginning of the Dragon Gate auction. Dragon Gate, Dragon King! At this time, in the area of Yaoding, Yaoshan was the most majestic mountain peak of Yaoding. The entire mountain peak was covered with green plants. Many plants swayed their branches, swaying without wind, and had their own lives. At the top of Mount Yao, a golden palace was built where the golden plants were. At this moment, 13 middle-aged elders were standing in the palace. In the center of the palace stood an elder. The elder was wearing a red robe and a green robe. This elder didn't appear in the sight of the other immortal sections. In the Yaoding world, there were only 2 immortal sects, the Holy Medicine Sect and the Holy Medicine Sect. Therefore, the other immortal sects didn't know the true strength of the 2 immortal sections. Now, there were 13 immortal gods in the entire palace, a total of 13. This was far beyond the expectations of the other immortal sects in the Jianghu. They only revealed 8 immortal gods, and now there were 5 more. This was terrifying. Moreover, if the people of the immortal sects saw the 2 sect leaders standing respectfully beside the old man in the middle, they would be even more shocked. After all, the sect leaders of the 2 immortal sects had the strength of a middle-level immortal. This meant that this old man was a high-level immortal. As of now, only the Xianyuan clan, the Yuan clan, and the Wild Beast Immortal sect were known to be high-level immortals. The Dragon Gate doesn't put us 2 immortal sects in their eyes. We can't let this grudge go just like that. It's not just this grudge. There's also the matter of the innate immortal sect. If it weren't for the Dragon King, we could completely monopolize the medicinal pills in the entire Jianghu in the future. Our influence could surpass that of the Xianyuan clan and the Yuan clan. Also, we can increase the terrifying battle strength of a tree demon, a middle-rank immortal. The 2 leaders of the 2 immortal sects growled in a low voice, their eyes filled with coldness. They had cut off their business and one of their immortal sect's powerful battle strength. Now, they had even killed the 10 most outstanding disciples of their 2 immortal sects, making the 2 immortal sects, Holy Medicine and Holy Doctor, lose face. Not to mention that in the past, the Dragon King had even destroyed the clansmen that they had left behind in the real world. Moreover, They also suspected that the experts of the immortal sects who had been sent out in advance before they appeared in the real world had also been killed by the Dragon King. All kinds of hatred had already become irreconcilable between the two sides. The face of our holy medicine and holy medicine immortal sect has been slapped so many times by the Dragon Gate. We absolutely cannot let this matter rest. Otherwise, the immortal sects in the world will think that we two immortal sects are to be trifled with. An old man in a fiery red robe continued to speak in a gloomy tone. That's right. Please give us your orders, Grand Supreme. We must teach this Dragon Gate a good lesson. The immortal gods of the holy medicine immortal sect looked at the old man in the middle and asked with eyes full of anger. The disciples of this Dragon Gate are all in the infant realm. The total number of members is at most 100. The immortal god treaty cannot be violated. The old man's face was full of fat, full of majesty and dominance. His lips moved slightly, and the sound of a loud bell rang out. This is also what we are afraid of. The Dragon Gate has 70 to 80 infant realm experts, and the number of experts is only 20 to 30 less than us. Moreover, they don't have any territory, so it's not easy to deal with them. An immortal god said with a gloomy face. All of the disciples were in the infant realm, so the immortal gate without any territory made it impossible for them to deal with them. No, the Dragon Gate didn't have any territory or property in the past, but according to the information I received, after the auction, the Dragon Gate will open a forging workshop to sell spirit tools and pills, and undertake the refining of spirit tools and pills. The green-robed old man shook his head, and his eyes shone with a bright light. Since he wants to monopolize the refining of medicinal pills and spirit tools in the Jianghu, then we... A middle-aged immortal god's cold lips curled up as he narrowed his eyes slightly. The crime of the Dragon Gate cannot be forgiven. Don't have any scruples. The old man standing in the middle slowly raised his head. The treacherous Spike clan has already established the treacherous Spike clan to carry out assassinations and accept any assassinations. The treacherous Spike clan doesn't have many clansmen either. They are similar to the Dragon Gate. We will pay for them to act. The treacherous Spike clan's assassinations, along with us, will be executed. If they offend our holy medicine, holy Dr. Celestial sect, kill them. In the future, we will make it impossible for them to gain a foothold in the martial arts world. The old man's eyes lit up and his voice reverberated throughout the entire hall. Anyone who dares to provoke us will be killed. Yes, Grand Supreme. Killing intent surged in the eyes of the immortals. A terrifying killing intent pervaded the entire hall. Dragon King, the floating island has been reconstructed by the puppet Celestial sect. Do you want to go over and take a look? At this moment, Mo Qilong said to Wang Xian when he had just returned to Jiang City. Let's go and take a look. There must be no mistakes in the Dragon Gate auction in 3 days. Wang Xian's eyes flickered. Once the auction was successful, it would mean that half of the Dragon Gate forging workshop was successful. Once the forging workshop was on the right track, the layout on land would be completed. By then, he could enter the ocean directly and start to enter the vast ocean, sweeping across the entire ocean. At that time, the Dragon Palace would improve at a terrifying speed. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.